I was told by my wife that she wants a break. I, 28M, and my wife, 27F, have been together for 7 years and married for almost 2. We have a beautiful 1-year-old and I thought everything was perfect for us. It's been a rough week but I was informed that she wanted a break between us. It came out of left field and I was lost on what could have happened. She expressed that she needed space to think on what she wants to do and find herself again. Since I understand me being the sole provider for our family, she had all the time at our home to take care of our kid while also making sure that she has the freedom to relax. She said she wasn't sure who she was anymore since her identity had changed from who she was to now mom. I understand that having a child is a very big moment and also it's a dramatic change to our dynamic and relationship. She expressed that I have not met her needs and she has no love nor feels happy with me anymore. I'm not her safe space even though I have been trying so hard to provide and give love to both my child and my wife. Working 10 to 12 plus hours a day, and whenever I am home, whether if I'm off or come home for work, I make sure to take care of our child so she does have her own time to do what she would like to do and have her own time, since being a stay-at-home mom is not easy. Noted all the stuff we have isn't joint, and we don't have a house together and just an apartment. She has been talking to a new friend group in a video game online recently, and this is way before she told me that she wanted to take a break from me. I noticed that she has been talking to this new guy and I seem to be concerned since they would talk all day and all night. I expressed my concerns regarding it and she just said that he was like a brother to her. I trust my wife and I didn't think that I would have to talk to this guy and let him know that she was married because I trust her to know when to nip the butt if it comes to that. A day later, after being told on taking a break, I did my best to provide her the space so she can think about what she's feeling, but it just looked like to me that she just always wanted to talk to this guy and also her new friend group. I was told that her friend group and this guy knew she was married and I did not want to think the worst case scenario. Few hours later I was told by a good friend of mine that she has oversharing her needs, affection sexual, and saying that I did not meet her needs no more, but mentioned that this guy she's been talking to could. She said that they have a more compatibility even though she has never met him before in real life. I was devastated to hear that because I thought I did everything I could to make her happy, providing the home and food for our family. Later that night I checked call logs and texts from this guy, and to my surprise, they've been sending explicit messages towards each other and asking questions about him sexually and comparing me to him to the point that they have gotten off while on chat or phone call. She later found out that I found all this out and was sorry for her action, but she still wants to talk to this guy because she was worried for his mental state after I caught them in the act. From the very beginning of the break I felt like my feelings were never considered in the first place. I just have to focus on my child to get me through the times in my own home that I'm providing, even though she's openly talking and video chatting with this guy. I know she's craving that attention since he is the one giving it to her, but doesn't think that me providing our family is not a show of love. I want this marriage to work because I love her even though she emotionally cheated and we have a child together, but it's so hard to find a will to keep trying if she's talking to this guy whenever I'm at work and when I come home from work. Is it my fault that she's seeking this attention to someone else she never met and I should have done a better job showing her the love that she deserves? I regret any instance that she mentioned that I'm not showing her the love that she wants, and I'm willing to work on them and keep fighting for our marriage, but she has no reason or will to make it work because she does not believe that I will change. If we did go to marriage counseling, it wouldn't be beneficial for her since she does not see any love towards me and I'm not her safe space no more, but this new guy is. She shows no will to make this work, and I understand no one is perfect, but I feel like any suggestion or action that I do towards this is just for naught. TLDR, I was told by my wife that she wants to take a break, but turns out she has fallen in love with someone who she never met in real life. Comments. Commenter 1. It's not going to work. Not only has she cheated on you, but she clearly doesn't want you anymore. I'd suggest gathering information and seeing if you could keep the house and the child as you're the provider. Not saying to leave her on the street, but hopefully her new guy can take her in. You seem like an amazing father and husband and you deserve so much better. Commenter 2. Thankfully they rent and don't share assets. She also doesn't seem interested in being a mom. Divorce and determining custody shouldn't be too difficult. Commenter 3. She asked for a break and said she doesn't love you anymore. This is before you even found out about the emotional cheating. She has checked out. I know you want to save the marriage. I know you are worried about your child. But being her jailer and or always worrying you are not good enough is not fair to you or her. TBH, I think you should serve her divorce papers as a wake-up call. She could have talked to you. She could have opened up to you. She did this. She chose to talk to the guy. You deserve better. Update. I honestly didn't think this would get lots of comments and views. I'm also surprised on how often this happens and how big the internet really is. Thank you for your time to read what I've been feeling. No, I'm not saying I'm not perfect, far from it, and there are faults that I have to work on to be a better partner in the future. I understand that only providing isn't the only thing while raising a child and keeping a family together. There are many instances where I wish I did more and should have done more so she would feel special and chaste like she wanted. There's only so much that people can do, and I see that she was just looking for the missing attention that I wasn't giving to her. Unfortunately, she has a mindset that I'm not going to change, or I don't have it in me to meet her needs, and does not see any romantic feelings to me. At this point, like many people mentioned, there's only so much I can do, but I need to focus on my child's safety and living. Have to stand up and show her that if that's what she wants, then so be it. Unfortunately, that means we weren't meant to be, but that doesn't erase all the good memories we had together throughout the years. My main priority is our child and my well-being. If I can't keep my head up and have the respect for myself, then how can I be there for the kid? Also went gray rock and just solely asks for updates regarding the child whenever I'm at work. Talk to reduce hours so I can work 8 to 9 depending if I stay longer for customers, sales. Gotten into contact with a few lawyers and gonna be calling them for questions to what to expect and provide more guidance. We'll keep you guys posted if this is still interesting to you guys. Thank you for your comments and also sincere sorries that I'm going through this. PSA, for everyone's thoughts, yes, I have screenshots of messages and call logs such as timestamps and also the duration of the calls. Call logs I always have access since I'm the main account holder for our phone plan. They still calling and video chatting, so I'm just racking it up so I have more references. Messages are obviously explicit and concerning. Haven't read all of them, but since the first time I checked her phone she changed the passcode obviously, so I'm just relying on messages on Discord on her computer. So whenever I get a chance to, then I'll snoop till I feel like I have enough. And yes, her family knows the whole situation and does not understand why this is happening or why is she so willing to go for this dude. Now she's trying to justify her cheating by saying that I cheated due to her giving me a mark that she does not remember giving. It's odd for me to be doing dishes at 5 a.m. if I wake up early due to taking care of our kid if they wake up early. It just shows another example of she doesn't want to take accountability for her actions and shifting the blame. I'm 100% open to take a polygraph at this point just to prove her wrong and make her realize what she's doing or thinking. Comments. Commenter 1. If you work so many hours, I don't know how can you spend more time with her. If she doesn't want to work, so both parents able to have their free time for the family. I don't see how it can work. I am glad you make up your mind. Commenter 2. She is just using him as a doormat and an easy life. Commenter 3. Her mindset of you not being able to change is just a way for her to shift blame and excuse her avoidance and wandering eye. It's more an excuse for her than you, by the way. That's what she was telling herself every time she slid farther down that slippery slope of choosing a stranger off the internet over her marriage and family. Yeah, no one's perfect, and being new parents is hard and life-changing, but you weren't out having an affair and blaming your unhappiness on your spouse without first addressing it and how much of an issue it was becoming. Sorry you're going through this, and I wish for health and happiness for you and your son. Update. A lot happened since the last update, but I started to focus on my well-being and mental state along with making sure my child has the love and attention she deserves. Come back home from the gym, showered and started spending time with the kid, and my STBXW decides to go and leave her computer unattended. I was already being dragged to her friend group and I noticed a few messages that were being sent on her phone, but it's linked to her computer. And it's just lots of hateful messages saying that I'm trying too hard to win her back, said that I went therapy and he's trying so hard that it's cringe. Purposefully saying that she's ignoring me because she doesn't want to be involved with me and just keeps laughing on about what I'm doing. Even though I'm not doing all this for her, I accepted the fact that I need to move on and just be the best dad for our child and learn to co-parent. For her to act civil to me but in reality shit talking about me to all her friends and the guy she's still in contact with and refers to me as her ex, I blew up. She asked me what does everyone think is gonna happen. That right there tells me you're only going to therapy counseling just to check it off. There was no saving to begin with. Told her that if she wants to leave so bad and be with this dude, go ahead and leave. You chose to step out of this marriage and family. She has the end of February to get out and the baby is staying here. She asked if she can visit and see her kid and I said yes, you're her mother, let me know when you want to see her. I'm not preventing you to not see your kid. I want her to know that at the end of the day, you're her mother and I'm her father. She agreed and said she'll be out of my hair as soon as she can. Noted this is all happening with her on the phone with the new babe. So yeah, that's the update, not trying to be a doormat, but enough is enough. Still getting contact with lawyers, but it seems like she's just willing to let it go to the point I don't need one but will still do my due diligence to protect myself and our child. Update 4. She's leaving next week and still head first on being with this other dude. Had the audacity to ask me if she can get birth control through my insurance and I declined because the main reason for it is so she can do whatever she wants with this dude. He's trying to get his own place so she can move in and she's driving all the way there. Still a wild situation, but we are in agreement with this situation regarding our child. Divorce papers are written and filed, so is the custody agreement we agreed upon. Everyone in the family is just disappointed and frustrated at the situation, however there's only so much that we can do and she's not willing to listen to anyone else besides her new dude and the friend group. Either way, hope she finds happiness with him, but if it goes south, she's not coming back. Comments. Commenter 1. Get a lawyer. Let her leave the house, and do not contact her whatsoever after she leaves. Don't call her to come see her kid, don't call her for anything. Tell her that all contact is to go through text or email, and nothing else. It's gonna help when it comes to gaining full custody in the divorce. Get on that divorce quickly, don't waste any more time that you absolutely have to. Again, this will help you greatly. It will allow you to take advantage of her current mood. Believe me, I was there. Don't fuck around, handle business quickly and without consideration for her. Stories number 2. I ruined my wife's life. I am 43, try to do my best to provide for my wife, F38, and 2 kids, 3, 5, as well as my MIL, and would like to think I am doing a decent job. Over the years, I worked to improve our family's living situation. Not only did I complete another bachelor's and recently master's in a STEM-related degree, I at the same time worked 2 full-time jobs, while completing my second bachelor's, and put my wife through school as well. She completed a degree where she could make good money, 60-70k a year, in a healthcare field that always has jobs available. But with the birth of our 2 kids, she has since gave up on her career to be a som for the time being. At first it was a struggle while I was finishing up my master's. Once I completed it, after our youngest turned 3, my career took a jump up and we are now able to afford our single-income household in a more feasible manner. We're far from rich but do okay for a single-income family of 4, a little north of 150k base plus bonuses. The past year life was overwhelming per my wife, so even though I now work 75% from home, I budgeted to hire a daytime nanny to help her around the house with one child while the other is in school now. My day starts every day around 5:30-6 am. I get the house ready for the day before the nanny comes at 8 am, I get our oldest up and ready for school, breakfast made, and plan out my day, bring our oldest to drop off, and be home in time to let the nanny in. My most recent task at work has me grounded for the next 2 months, meaning I am now 100% WFH. While this is nice, I am busy in meetings all day as my role manages teams on a global scale as I oversee projects for my industry. For the past 1.5 months, I realized, my wife, as much as she says her life is stressful at home, starts at 10 am. I asked my MIL and nanny if this was always the case after a week or so of WFH, and they both responded more or less, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. My wife literally wakes up and cooks and then scrolls through her phone or shops from home, which brings me to my gripe. I am glad I am able to provide her that sort of life since we both grew up lacking in means. I get the possibility of postpartum depression, the stress of having kids, the feeling of being unfulfilled, the fact that I probably am a shitty husband, but for what it's worth everything is taken care of and then some. I manage the house's finances, she claims she was too busy to do so, pay all the household bills, I pay my own personal bills, I pay her bills, track and perform all the upkeep of our house appliances, cars, pets, etc., and I also help pay for my MIL's medical bills and car note. But apparently my life is on easy street compared to hers. I can't decompress to her because it seems like she always feels the need to one-up me. I had a bad day, but she had it worse cause I'm lucky I got to go away and work. My feet hurt from walking all day during work travel, which is nothing compared to her standing and cooking with a child clinging to her. For the past 2 or so years, I've been told I ruined her life, her opportunities, etc., but when I reminded her of what she says, she denies and dodges accountability. My MIL has brought me aside and stated she's noticed a change in both myself and my wife. I have a greater attachment to my kids, and hell, I've hugged the dogs and talked to them more about my life than to my wife. I honestly feel like I am in emotional survival mode as I'm one step from moving up the career ladder and one step away from finding love and comfort from the bottom of a whiskey bottle. I'm sure I'll be hearing from the manly men of Reddit about how I'm simping, but I'm not a machine. I just want to know and feel that someone I prioritize aside from my kids appreciates and loves me for what I do. I'm sure I'll hear from the stay-at-home moms of Reddit, which is fine. I grew up in a single-parent mother household. It's not easy, and honestly, with the help of her mother and a nanny Monday through Friday, for one toddler while another child is at school. Can you honestly tell me she's having the typical SOM experience? Because neither my friends or colleagues who are single parents can say she is. I'm sure the masses of holier-than-thou Redditors will consider this a poorly written fanfic, but it is what it is. TLDR, long story short, it feels as if my wife has checked out of our marriage. We're only roommates where she can still reap the marriage benefits. I'm not asking for her to throw herself at me all the time and let me do whatever I want. I really just want to be told I'm doing good and just offer me some form of emotional comfort as simple as a hug, but I guess as the man who ruined her life, I deserve it. Thank you for the replies. To add more context. Never cheated. I do work in an industry that has a large female population, but I'm literally an open book with work, name colleagues and staff under me. She has access to my work agendas and correspondence if she really wanted to snoop, but on that note she still doesn't know what exactly I do for a living at this time. We as whole family, her parents and mine, have tried to get her to go to therapy, but she refuses or skirts around the issue. Aside from my coming from a single mother household parse, my biological dad was present in my life. She has had both parents in a reportedly monogamous marriage for over 40 years. I have tried to talk to her about everything and my own feelings, but again, one-upmanship tends to be the trend here. What I am getting out of the marriage was asked now. Aside from my two beautiful kids, I've been asking myself that same question. We have a near non-existent sex life mainly since last year. I always figured maybe it's part of depression or whatever she may be going through. Maybe I'm just not attractive enough or just horrible in bed because of my health conditions. I'm not some supermodel husband, but temptation and opportunity does knock and I can perform still, but I never give in. Because as cliche as it sounds, I honestly do love my wife and want to only be with her. I'll give credit where credit is due, as I don't want to sound biased. When I say she wakes up and cooks, she cooks for everyone in the house. Myself, kids, MIL, and even nanny. Aside from breakfast, she cooks all meals and snacks. I typically fast until lunchtime and our oldest tends to eat a small simple breakfast in case they don't like what school serves that morning. She does load both the kids and her laundry but seldomly folds and puts them up. I typically do my own, and the rest of my clothes I dry clean because they're work clothes. She does keep track of our pantry and fridge. But after she makes the list, I'm the one who goes out and buys everything if not delivered. She does clean our bathrooms and house 50% of the time. The other 50% is done by either MIL or myself, or sometime nanny if she feels like being extra helpful. Prior to nanny, my MIL was the main help for my wife up until she had unexpected medical needs. So I opted to hire a nanny to help them both, more so when MIL is having treatments and recovering. Update: not sure if anyone would read this, but thank you for those who have reached out and chit-chatted. While I know I've kept my newfound friends here updated, I figured I'd just update my post and keep it short. I showed my wife my post the following weekend and she read it and all the comments. Long story short, argument, she left our house to stay with her sister, and I've been a single parent since. It's sad to say, aside from the good nights to our kids, it's all pretty much the same routine. Nothing much else to say other than thank you for all the kind words of encouragement. Just need to add, this post got bigger than I expected from a venting post, but I've responded to a few comments. Nonetheless, thank you for the comments and DMs, and more so for the offers to let me ruin your life, ha. It's been the highlight of my day-night as I sit here drinking with my dog while everyone else is asleep. It feels depressingly sad that I feel that I have to turn to random internet strangers for some sort of validation in my rant. My apologies in advance as I try to keep this as vague as possible. I ruined my wife's life again. I just wanted to update those who have been kind enough to check up via DM and comments. Apologies in advance for the lengthy post. It's a bit of irony and coincidence that I made a follow-up from the update on May 6, 2024 I made on my original post during Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, but I could really use another outlet outside of my therapist. My apologies if this isn't the storybook ending destroying of a relationship people were hoping for. To save you a read. Wife left. Came back like nothing happened. She made it about her. Nothing's changed. I'm continuing to be suffering mentally, knowing nothing will change while trying to keep it together for our kids. Lots of takeout. The day after she packed up and left, my wife attempted to come back and take the kids with her to her sister's. Naturally I was against this, and thankfully so was her whole family including said sister. Not only was it not fair to our kids for her to sweep them away into a home that's not theirs, but to put that financial and housing stress on the rest of her family since she doesn't work and her sister and her family, husband and 3 kids, stays with their dad in the house they grew up in. After a little over a week of being away, I guess she cooled off, so she just decided that it would be fine if she walked in the door with her bags as if she just came back from Target. She came into my office while I was working and angrily stared at me while I sat on a conference call meeting with my team, and I couldn't just jump off as this is a busy time of the quarter for us. I guess that didn't sit well with her because once I took off my headset and closed my laptop, she started yelling at me about how much I really don't care about her and her well-being overall. At that moment I couldn't do anything more than look at her and just shake my head. Mother-in-law came in after hearing my wife yelling and pulled her away, telling her to not bother me, while our nanny kept our youngest away from it all on the other side of the house. That night after the kids were put to bed, I sat in my office by myself with a drink as I have been doing for the past nights, and my wife came in. We talked. We argued. We cried. We drank. One thing led to another and we were in bed. I wish I could say that was our making up, but the next sobering morning as we laid there, she went on about how hard it was for her the time she was gone. Literally it was about her struggles staying at her family house in her old room with her dad and sister's family. How lucky I am to be able to stay here and do this and that and buy this or do that and not stress as much as they did. How easy my and everyone else's in our family lives are compared to hers even though we had similar upbringings. My mind and heart broke that morning. I've been spiraling down since then, and this last week I made another attempt to reconcile and talk things out, but I was met with a shouting match while trying to express my current stress and anxieties with life and work in general. Wife, well, do you know how hard this is all for me? You're supposed to help me be happy, so when it comes to my happiness, stress, needs, and overall well-being FK me get over it, right? Wife, we all have our own problems, you need to figure it out and get over them. I don't know who the woman I am at home with is, but that wasn't the woman I married and vowed to spend my life with and raise our kids together. Since that conversation, I've been noticeably distant with her. I've been sleeping in my office or on the couch or with my kids in their bed after putting either one of them to sleep. Still doesn't change her starting her day at 10 a.m. and sitting on her phone talking to her mom groups between cooking meals with the kids in both mother-in-law and nanny's care. Nothing has changed and I doubt that anything will change. Sadly, I think even if we got a divorce, nothing would change or feel different anyway, since during my wife's leaving the days seemed like any other day except with a little more takeout than usual. My main fear there isn't that I wouldn't just lose my wife, I'd lose my kids in the process. So I guess it's sad to say the grand finale to my story, with like a lot of men and some women I've talked to here, I'll just continue to smile and suffer in silence. First off, thank you for all the comments and DMs. Some context and clarification, since admittedly my post was emotionally charged since I typed it up after another argument. Post-birth, our kids' pediatrician's office gave my wife those postpartum depression screening forms, and during the time of both she scored pretty high and was suggested to see a therapist. With our second child she scored significantly higher, and I should say I made an effort to get her the help she needs. She refused, so entered mother-in-law and nanny for support. I know what people will think, but this is one of the reasons I am not 100% ready to just give up and file our life together away. Also, I know silently suffering in the near and long run of our kids' future will not add to a healthy atmosphere, but neither would a bitter and hate-filled divorce. I know some have compared it to the ripping off a bandage, saying it'll hurt at first but that pain goes away, but I'd rather try to spare my kids thinking that their parents ended up hating each other because of them or something along those lines. I've told a few PPL I talked to in DM since my last post, a little more insight on my personal life. Prior to my promotion I was a PM managing teams and budgets, so out of habit I plan for a lot of what-ifs. That being said, I made a number of contingency plans if sadly things went south, so, yes, I have talked to a lawyer, 3 actually. Know our rights and what each of us are entitled to. Have a draft settlement created and on hold until I feel I need to use it. I know what I want and am willing to offer more than what is fair for our kids' well-being, but also have a plan if we end up going to court. It's 100% on me that I'm suffering in silence, but I'm too stubborn to just give up, so while I am venting, I don't expect anyone to feel sorry for me. I endure it to keep the norm our kids know, ensure my MIL's treatments go uninterrupted, and of course the hope my wife would finally be open to give therapy a shot and climb together to a better place. Thank you all again. I ruined my wife's life, so I ruined everyone else's too. First and foremost TLDR, I'm done. Wife said I don't do and am not shit in front of the therapist and family Father's Day dinner. She got served. She mad. She is trying to act perfect and I'm just waiting while taking care of my family, kids, my mom, and MIL. Oh well, I'll just ruin everyone else's life too in my family. Secondly, to clear some confusion, I did not get 2 bachelors and a master's while working 2 jobs at the same time as some readers are assuming. Bachelor's 1 graduated in the early 2000s. Bachelor's number 2 via online years, 2 classes a semester, later while working 2 full-time jobs. Job number 1 hospital 36-48 schedule, job number 2 big box store 32 to 40 hours spread out 7 days a week, to pay for both my and my wife's tuition because she decided to go back to school before we had kids after graduating from Bachelor's 2 and entering the industry I am in now. I was able to work 1 job and get my master's. So no, I did not get 3 degrees at the same time or in that close succession, and I am surprised that I actually have to spell this out as someone working 2 jobs while going to school isn't that uncommon, or at least that's what I thought. My wife chooses not to work. She does technically have a job. She just barely works it to the point we forget she has a job, as in she worked 1 day 4 to 5 months ago for 8 hours on a Tuesday, kind of barely works. Her job and manager is really supportive, Flex PRN model, and gives her a list of days they need coverage and she can choose to pick up a shift or not. While she can work more and only does just enough to keep up her license, she complains to our family of her career being on hold for one reason or the other, although she has the opportunity to work more if she opted to. All things considered, she has an available supportive circle around her for either decision she falls on. Our family, her job, and I have made multiple offers and taken many steps to open that door for her to go back to work, i.e. nanny, MIL moved in to help, I work from home, her crazy flex PRN schedule, etc., but here we are. I am and have been in therapy for myself already. Aside from what I deal with at home, my work can be very debilitating in regard to my mental health as well as physical at times. Since I can't find the support I need mentally and physically at home with my wife, I've opted to attend therapy rather than find comfort with someone outside of the home or at the bottom of a bottle. I've tried to express this to my wife, and as mentioned in my previous post, she has a habit of one-upping me, and here we are. My in-laws are still married. Given the circumstances in our home, my MIL moved in to help out my wife, while my SIL and her family moved back into their parents' house due to their own reasons. SIL and her family can save money while getting back on their feet, and my wife and I benefit from MIL's help, and we can keep a closer eye on her while she undergoes bi-monthly treatments. My wife, by means of questionnaires, is highly suspected to have PPD alongside with a history of symptomatic OCD, ADHD, amongst other ailments that over the years she refused to get evaluated for or refused to accept results given. I knew what I was getting into, and I love and accepted my wife for these flaws as she did mine at the time. Spare me your "I don't feel sorry for you" or pity. I am like every other man who fell in love and wanted to give my person the best of me and the world I can offer, but again, here we are. There's a lot of manly men red pill nation guys out there complaining and saying I'm simping over my wife. While I respect your own opinions and perspectives, I will outright say, if this situation was only affecting my life, I would have left a long time ago. As one Redditor said in a past comment that stuck to me, I am the kind of person that will take a bullet for his kids. Maybe it's in a different context intended, but to protect my children from any harm physically or mentally, I'll take the proverbial bullet if and as needed. I'd like to think other dads out there would respond to the duty to protect their children, and that's why I endured as much as I have. For the time being, I would rather my wife use me as an outlet for whatever her problems were versus our kids. Thank you all for the comments and reaching out. I've met many strangers who have become great Reddit pen pals, and some who have been in the know of every step that has been progressing to this point. I am surprised at how far this has gone, from other subreddits, other platforms, and even YouTube. Love me, hate me, say it's all fake, no matter where you stand, thank you for all the constructive comments and DMs to check in. Our kids and myself are going to be alright moving forward. Now for the update. The end of an era. This will be shorter than some expected, as really there's not much to say but just satiate the questions some of you may have had and give people the satisfaction of the "I told you so" moment on Reddit. After a hard push from our family via an intervention, my wife and I finally attempted to go to marriage counseling. I'm sure many of you can guess how well that went. Blame. Tears. Regrets. Gaslighting. With a side of "I am the reason for her life being ruined and horrible." Again. Just this time in front of a licensed therapist instead of Reddit or mom groups. In the end, everything the therapist suggested and noted went over her head and ignored as it was against the grain of her status quo. One thing I guess worth saying was the therapist asked if she could recall when she last truly felt happy. Her response was about 12 or so years ago. Please note, 12 years ago she was still in her 20s. Childless. Living with her ex. A vastly different time and position in life. I know it's petty of me, but I guess if that's when she was last happy, it wouldn't be that far of a stretch for her to find that happiness again, since her ex is in the same apartment, job, and place in life that he was 12 years ago. Which is fine, if that's how you want to live life. I try not to judge, but in my 40s with kids, going clubbing 3 to 4 days a week is not my jam anymore. And of course I don't want my kids around a mom and company who drowns themselves in White Claws. To add, I know some will ask, I know and can confirm she hasn't physically cheated on me but can't confirm if she did emotionally, if that's the right term. After said therapy session I checked all her phone records and didn't see anything out of the ordinary, but I also didn't bother to check apps like IG or Snapchat. I know I'm probably boring, but shout out to all the Costco dads whose Sunday funday includes making rounds with kids for samples. The following weekend was Father's Day, and this year as expected not that big of a celebration as it is for many dads out there. Our family got together to celebrate with a barbecue and just simple family time, and my wife treated it like any other day. Sleep in. Get up. Cook. Phone. Shop. Attempt to play with kids. Phone. During said family barbecue my wife said she felt ill, so she sat around most of the day while the rest of the family as a whole made the experience enjoyable. When everything was set up and the family all sat at the table, her parents and sister's family, my mother, our kids, admit tingly it was a great spread, nothing extravagant but just a great meal for everyone. I was conversing with my brother-in-law about both of our kids' school Father's Day activities and I assume my wife overheard when I mentioned that it was a little sad to see some kids sit alone without their fathers during the breakfast with dad event I attended. She blurted out with a laugh loud enough for the whole room to hear, "It's not like you do anything anyway, I could have gone instead." At that moment I was red and at a loss for words sitting there processing what she said in my head, while the dining room went dead silent. My MIL broke the awkwardness and in response said, "Well maybe if you feel that way, one of you should divorce the other." My wife looked at my MIL confused that she would respond with that and laughed mockingly in my direction and with her hand pointing at me said, "As if another woman would want a man like him. Just look at you," while the room sat silent. I was angry, heartbroken, confused, and embarrassed all at the same time. In manly man fashion, I just nodded my head in silence, stood up, and picked up my keys and got in my truck and drove off to get a drink while trying to ignore the cries of the rest of the family and our kids telling me to stay. I don't know what was said or done while I was out of the house the rest of Sunday, because I couldn't bring myself to check our house cameras, but when I returned early Monday morning, the house had a completely different feel. As usual, I woke up around 6, got the house and our oldest ready for school drop-off. Checked emails, checked messages, nothing out of the ordinary. As I was getting dressed to leave, my wife laid in our bed snoring lightly. All I could do was look at her and think of what we had, and now lost. I've decided. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I texted my lawyer that morning to move forward with serving her. Fast forward to last week, she was served at our home, reminder to people I had no choice but to be there because I work from home. She had, I guess what you could call a mini meltdown and came into my office screaming how could I do this to her. Her mother intervened, and that was met with me supposedly turning her whole family against her. But I digress, I probably would have felt bad if it wasn't immediately followed by the rest of her week acting as if she's been this active and attentive wife and mother the past few years. Sure, people can say she's making an attempt. But she's made many attempts and historically we fall back to where we've been. For those curious, I am aiming for full or at least majority custody of our kids. I already and will continue to cover all the expenses for our kids, insurance, tuition, both of our kids will be attending private schools come fall, medical bills, etc. My MIL has given me the courage and strength that helps supplement my own mother's support throughout this. Basically she is what I hoped the kind of mother-wife my wife would have been to our kids and me. Out of respect for my MIL as well as per my own mother's shared wishes, I will continue to help oversee and contribute financial help if needed during her treatments. While some may feel I should cut their whole family off, I know the hardships pushed onto a family while dealing with cancer and have dealt with it firsthand as a family member and care provider on both sides of the desk. All in all, I'm prepared to go to war if needed, but I just want a clean no-fuss divorce. My wife has no alimony coming, so sorry for the Redditors and mommy gang Facebook groups saying she needs to divorce me first and get that sweet alimony money. 1. We live in a state that does not typically enforce alimony. 2. She has a means of gainful employment immediately. 3. To help curb any possible problems I will cover her insurance and bills until either divorce is finalized or when she gains full employment. So that's that. I'm done and waiting for the steps to be taken for everything to be finalized. Sorry it wasn't as exciting of a story with plot twist as some may have hoped for, but that's life. Not sure I'll update this once it's all finalized, which probably won't be for a few more months depending if we go to war or not. I ruined my wife's life and I don't care anymore. In respect to the subreddit, I guess I should get it off my chest that as much as I don't want to care anymore, I still do to some degree. Thank you for all the comments, messages, and to the handful of people who have become Reddit pen pals throughout my journey in this matter. It took some time for me to update as between adjusting to my new life and slowly cutting ties with the past and moving forward for our children, family, and work has been my priority. With that I wanted to provide an update for those who may have been curious. TLDR divorced finalized. She took the money and seemed to have spent damn near all of it. Kids are good. MIL is doing good. Promotion, salary increase, and new home to start new life in the new year for me. Overtime, taking household items from my house, and combining incomes with her BF to make 1/4 of what I make a month for her. Yes, shameless plug. Don't judge me. I am moving on. I have no interest currently in romance and want to primarily focus on our kids. The update. Since my last update, I've been under the scrutiny of our social circles and labeled every typical, toxic man-husband stereotype that Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram has to offer. As much as I hate the saying, I kind of understand the, "you know my name but not my story," posts now. With that said, these strangers or alienated family and friends can take their opinions and go FK themselves, because in the end, if our kids are happy, healthy, and flourishing under my toxic household, what's it to you? The more important updates: we're divorced. I have majority custody, and even though my ex is now trying to be the present mother whenever her now busy schedule allows, it is too little too late. My MIL continues to be responding well to treatments, and SIL has now taken over where my ex was supposed to be in helping oversee her care. Post-divorce, I recently moved homes and jobs and accepted the next step forward career-wise, which my company has been kind enough to slowly transition me into the role as leadership understands what I am going through at home. Interestingly, it's amazing how common my story is amongst my colleagues and network. I am happy to say I am now one of the newer members of the Fellowship of Divorce Directors and Execs. As sad as it may sound, it is nice to know that many understand and are willing to offer a high degree of support, advice, assistance, and guidance as needed. The divorce itself was quick, but it still had its sad and angry moments, and many of the people in my camp think my ex got away with robbery. But the fact that I was awarded majority custody and per agreement have our kids, almost, every day and know they're safe under my roof is worth every cent. While I had no say or real cares how my ex moved forward with mediation as long as she agreed to terms, I think the biggest slap in the face to me was how she delegated her boyfriend as someone to advise her throughout this process, because his opinion is more important than any lawyer who isn't looking out for my best interest. At this point, the holidays were around the corner, and I didn't want this to disrupt the holidays for our kids and family. While I was prepared to go to court, my ex did not want to diminish her payout, and I just wanted things over and done with. I'll leave out the finer details of the terms, but in exchange for having majority custody and taking care of all expenses related to our children, I would give her that lump sum she was aiming for with no request of child support on my end. She kept all her tangible possessions, i.e. car, bags, clothes, jewelry. I had to sell the home and split the profits from the sale and foot the bill on taxes, gave her almost all our joint bank accounts after legal fees, and to top it off, laughably she argued rights to alimony, which she's not getting. As a PSA, don't rely on your legal advice from Facebook groups. In the end, reality sinks in. I'd like to think overall I'm a simple man. All I wanted to do was get married, have a family, and provide. With that goal in mind, I somehow got into a position where my spouse was able to choose if she wanted to work or not and not worry about anything outside of our family. How it turned out like this, I can't pinpoint. I'll admit I am a bit oblivious of what I did, but maybe it's my own fault, as some PPL stated, and I brought this onto myself. Post-settlement, I ended up downsizing and closed on a smaller but spacious house for the three of us and our dog, with a separate generational suite in our backyard for my MIL to stay, as she wished to stay involved in our kids' care regardless of if I was married to her daughter or not. Honestly, I made sure that addition to the home was available for her because I hoped she would be able and open to help until the kids were a little bit older. For what it's worth, it seems my ex found her happiness. Luxury trips in a short time frame she wanted, her BF and her move to a bigger place to stay, luxury high-rise studio, but still no place for our kids to stay, her BF got his dream car, and a long list of expenses and shopping sprees that kind of benefited our kids if at all in any way sprinkled in her social media accounts. She's rocking Cartier while our kids are sporting Carters. My ex came to visit our cute little house, to visit our kids and MIL, and complimented me on my choice of home and that I was able to keep up the status quo of our home without her. I'm sure many will see the irony in this. I'm not entirely sure her motive or if I'm just reading too deep into it, but she dropped lines about how stressful and expensive their living expenses, rent, utilities, cell internet service, and insurance, our groceries are now, and how surprised it costs to feed her, her BF, and whoever the hell else comes to their home. I'm not sure why, but she initially was under the impression the generational suite was meant for her use when she has the time and wants to co-parent. She is even more tired and struggling with her schedule now because she works a total of 48 hours a week and forced to work overtime at times, and her BF works, but I didn't dig or care about the details. But I do care that I think she thinks I don't notice that she takes some of our usual household staples and items with her before she left. Mainly bottles of soap she always bought for our home, Sonic, our replacement brush heads and other toiletries, a new unopened bottle of the Mountain Valley water from the fridge when she visits, and I may be reading too deep into something again, but sometimes I find some of the ins tax pics from the fridge missing. Usually it's just of the kids or MIL and the kids, but a few were of the four of us in the past. Although her White Claw fund takes precedence over their home's Charmin 2-ply supply, I try to be as accommodating as possible so that she can still be involved with our kids, allowing her to drop by our home whenever, if ever, she can, still work primarily from home, so I'm always here, and keeping her in the loop about their activities and such. It was nice to see she was able to make it to our youngest's first Christmas school assembly, where our eldest had speaking parts in the play before work. Later that week, I brought our kids to bring her a plate of food on Christmas Day at the hospital because she has holidays to work. I'd be lying if I said that didn't hurt or that I didn't feel uncomfortable with the stares and whispers from her coworkers while I waited for the kids to excitedly give her their presents and wish their mom a Merry Christmas. Even though she was trying to be welcoming, all I could do was say Merry Christmas and wave goodbye from the distance as we left. This past Christmas, with as many blessings I have to be thankful for, it all felt so hollow at the same time. During New Year Eve, I embraced my inner Pinterest dad trying to make everything as festive and fun possible and copied ideas of doing a countdown at 9 p.m. for the kids with a balloon drop in our living room and popping some fireworks as soon as the sun set. On that note, I should mention that I rediscovered my love of cooking, something I did for years while a bachelor with my roommates and the stress of a 4- and 6-year-old insisting that they're mini versions of Gordon Ramsay and can provide Michelin-level sous chef services. With the kids tucked away and asleep, I rang in the new year with my dog and a drink. Scrolling on my phone with the sounds of fireworks popping in the distance, I saw that my ex was living her best life in her new life snap after snap after snap. So, I made a mental checklist for the end of 2024. Self-esteem, almost gone. Confidence, hanging by a thread. Ability to open and trust anyone outside of my current inner circle and dog, non-existent. Hatred towards my ex and her newfound life, surprisingly gone. All I could do is just laugh a little at the snap on my phone. She left me, she hurt me, but she did not destroy me. We're now two different people with two different lives and I must move forward for the ones I owe it to. Other than the connection of our kids and some immediate family, we have no more connections and I really have no interest in acting like I was in my 20s and my 40s and spending half my paycheck on liquor because it's Tuesday and New Year's Eve. Maybe I'm just boring, but I can and only want to focus on my kids and ensure that their lives and future is the best that I can provide. Ensure the people and projects I oversee stay afloat and going in this economy. And last, but not least, make sure both my mother and ex-mil are taken care of in the future moving forward. Advice from what I learned. To the men out there, if you're in a similar situation, don't give up hope. But keep in mind, actions, records, and overall proof speaks louder than your words. It's an uphill battle, but no man has to fight it alone. Plan, prepare, seek reputable counsel and advice, and in the end execute. As hard as it may be, stay focused and be as objective as possible in these times, and most importantly follow through with what you say and promise to your kids. To the women, stay off social media and comparing your life to others. Just kidding. The first piece of advice applies to anyone regardless of how you identify. I don't think I'll be updating anymore, but I do plan to keep this all just for my Reddit pen pals, so please feel free to say hi cause it's nice to have new friends. Stories number 3. Aita for not letting my mother's husband come to my wedding. I, 29F, have been with my partner, 32M, for 7 years. We have been back and forth whether we want a big wedding or if we just elope. We have decided to have a wedding as we are both only children, so it's our parents' only change to see their kids get married. One of the big reasons we wanted to elope was both our families are broken and not everyone gets along. It's our day and we really didn't want the drama that our families might bring. I sent out the invites about 2 months ago, and my mother called me as soon as she got it to let me I made a mistake as her invite only had her name and a note saying strictly no +1. She flipped her lip that her husband wasn't invited as they have been married for almost 25 years. A bit of backstory, I am an only child and he doesn't have kids. They got together when I was around 3 years old. When I was 8 years old he started abusing me. This went on until I left home at 15 years old to live with my great aunt. While I didn't tell anyone at the time due to fear of him, I have since told my great aunt. She has been super supportive and helped me seek help for this. When my mother was made aware of this, she instantly defended him and took his word that he never touched me. While I wasn't surprised by this, appearances mean a lot to her, it hurt me deeply. We had a rocky relationship for a few years after. Because of this, she has made it clear that she is sticking by him and will defend him if I ever took it further. Despite this, we have come a long way to repair the relationship we once had, and I want my mother at my wedding. For the past month I have been getting calls left, right and center from other family members telling me how rude it is that I haven't invited the man who raised me and that he is very upset he can't walk me down the aisle. I don't know what to say to them other than it's a small wedding and we only have limited spots. I don't want to tell anyone the real reason as it overshadow the wedding and that's all they will be thinking about. They are making me feel guilty and like I've done the wrong thing. They all think I should have invited him. I can understand from their point of view it would be strange as they don't know about anything. My fiancé and great aunt fully supports me not wanting him there, but I still feel like an A**** hole for not inviting him. Aita. Update, Aita for not letting my mother's husband come to my wedding. Absolutely devastated. After reading so many comments about her bad behavior and so many people saying they would be NC and wouldn't have her at the wedding, I really took it all on board and called her. I asked her to really think about it, think about what he did to me, how it made me feel, and ask why she thought I would want him at my wedding. I told her at this point I don't want her to attend and told her to stop calling people and complaining about it. I told her if I get more calls or texts or if she causes any more drama about being uninvited, I would tell the whole family what he did to me for 7 years under her roof and how she didn't do a thing to stop him or protect me. She instantly got defensive and lost her sh*t at me over the phone. I told her I'm not getting into it over the phone and she needs to respect my wishes. Now overnight, I've had almost 20 family members message me telling me they are no longer attending my wedding and that I am disgusting and a vile mentally ill girl for making up such nasty and revolting lies about MH. I called my aunt, mother's sister, and when she finally agreed to talk to me, she told me my mother called her last night in tears. She was apparently beside herself. The short version was basically I was jealous of him and how much attention my mother gave him. I was set on ruining him as a person and was going to make up lies about him abusing me just to get my own way. I was gobsmacked. I literally sat on the phone in shock for a few minutes while she continued to tell me what my mother said. She apparently also told her the reason I left home so young was because I hated MH making me do my chores. She even told her that at 15, just before I left, that I tried to seduce him to persuade him into giving me a car, and he turned me down, which made me angry. That's why I left. I told my aunt that was simply not true. It was so far from the truth. I asked her to call and talk to my great aunt, and she can tell her what really happened. When I told her about the abuse, my aunt said she is now confused and doesn't know who to believe. I am gutted and completely embarrassed. If this is what she has told my aunt, what has she told everyone else? How do I face this? I feel like that vulnerable little girl all over again. My fiancé is a little overwhelmed with how everything is unfolding but still been really supportive. We have decided to cancel the wedding despite having paid deposits for almost everything and elope with just his immediate family, my great aunt, and a few close friends. Update 2, Aita for not letting my mother's husband come to my wedding. Shit has hit the fan big time. I've had a few family members reach out to me and turns out he assaulted 2 of my older cousins before me, and 1 since. As awful as it sounds, and I know it sounds awful and I don't meant it that way, but I'm glad I'm not alone. Now it's not just me trying to tell my family. Our experiences are all pretty similar. We were all too scared to come forward and say anything because he threatened to hurt us and our families. We all thought we were the only one. He always said we were his special one. I know how silly it sounds now, but as a kid living with it you believe, and as you grow up you hope he isn't hurt others. We are in the process of talking to everyone in the family to seeing if he hurt anyone else. Once the family heard about the other girls coming forward, everything became clear to them. They realized my mother was lying to protect him and have rallied around us all. They have all been so apologetic for believing my mother and not seeing it sooner. My MH on the other hand showed up at my house. I have no clue how he got my address as mother doesn't even have it. He was trying to threaten me into staying quiet and not go to the police. I obviously didn't answer the door and asked him to leave. I called my partner to come home quickly and I also called the police. He broke into my house while I was on the phone to the dispatcher and started yelling at me, hitting me and trying to choke me. Thankfully help arrived within about 10 minutes and the self-defense classes I've taken helped a little bit. As scary as it all was, I feel like it's finally over, if that makes sense. He is being charged and still in lockup for break and enter and assault. The 4 of us girls all made statements about the abuse and the police are opening an investigation. What a roller coaster this week has been. Honestly, I didn't think it was possible to feel everything I'm feeling. At the start of the week we were having a wedding and no one really knew about the abuse, to wedding cancelled and everything thinking I'm making things up, to everything unfolding with MH and my cousins, and now we have decided to go ahead with the wedding but change it to be more about us and for us, not our families. Obviously I know we still have a long road ahead of us, but for now it's over. Time to focus on the wedding and the people who matter most. Thank you to everyone who has left comments and advice, it's been so appreciated. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. In response to a different commenter, why do you say this if it's definite to you, then show me why. Genuinely curious how you came to this definite conclusion. There are typos, grammar, and syntax errors galore, not knocking OP, we all fuck up, throughout the post and updates. Seems it's too human to be AI generated. People call everything AI nowadays. Reply, no offense taken, I've never been good at proofreading. OOP on whether or not if it's her final update. This is definitely the last update. I wasn't planning on updating at all, but so much happened and it felt good getting it out. Time to focus on the wedding and putting this all behind us. Stories number 4. Aita for uninviting someone from my wedding after she just spent $2,000 on my bachelorette. I had my bachelorette party last month, an international trip with 13 girls. Most live in City 1, where I grew up but no longer reside. I now live in City 2, a short flight or 6-hour drive away. One of the girls, Rachel, was a high school friend I reconnected with 2 years ago after getting engaged. She recently started dating someone new. He's in City 2, my city, and she spent the entire trip FaceTiming him. At events, the club, the beach, the yacht, while getting ready, even in the shower. Worse, she dragged other girls into her calls, even though they barely knew her, let alone him. She also FaceTimed while people were changing or while she herself was fully nude. At one point, she got into an argument with her boyfriend and handed the phone to her roommate, Jamie, who had never met him, forcing her into the fight. Jamie, fed up, hung up and later asked to switch rooms. When she wasn't FaceTiming, she was talking about him non-stop. At dinner, she kept blurting out, "I'm moving to City 2, we're gonna be neighbors." But when I asked about her kids, she vaguely said she'd fly or drive home every weekend. This is a mom of 2, with 2 different dads, moving for a boyfriend of 1 month. One night, during a private chef dinner, the power went out and Rachel's phone died. Everyone withheld their portable chargers. She then booked a hotel on someone else's phone, packed her bags, and left to charge her phone. Mandy, being too nice, walked with her. On the way, Rachel suddenly desperately needed to call her kids, which was hilarious since she hadn't mentioned them once. Unfortunately, the power came back, so Rachel did too. Later, while we were playing bachelorette games, she blurted out racial slurs during Mad Libs. I snapped, and the room went silent. We had a shared photo album for group pics. Rachel uploaded hundreds of selfish, thirst traps, FaceTime screenshots, texts about how her boyfriend was the one, and even mirror selfish from a store where she was trying on clothes without underwear. One dress had a slit, and her hoo-ha was showing. My fiancé was getting updates from some of the girls. He even asked Jamie to talk to Rachel, and he himself sent her messages about being more self-aware and to stop FaceTiming this guy. Nothing changed. After the trip, I sent Rachel a message thanking her for coming but making it clear her behavior was completely unacceptable. I also told her she was no longer invited to my wedding. She read it and never responded. Some friends think I was harsh since she spent time and money to celebrate me. To be clear, I'm not cutting her off because I didn't feel like the center of attention, lol. This is about how deeply uncomfortable she made everyone. Since I got back, I've heard even more crazy stories that the girls kept from me because they saw how upset I was. Aita for uninviting her. Edit. Didn't expect this post to get so many responses, so here's some more info on a lot of the comments. Yes, 13 people is a lot. 6 are bridesmaids. Rachel is not a bridesmaid. I have a mix of different friend groups, haha, some girls from high school, college, work, adult life, travels, etc. They're not all close with each other, but they've all met over the years. Yes, I know $2,000 is a lot, but I live in California and that seems normal for us. I'm sorry if it's not normal for you. The trip was planned a year out and to give people time to budget. Nobody was forced to come and spend. I've spent similar amounts for their bachelorettes. Yes, several girls talked to her. My fiancé talked to her. I talked to her, she would put away her phone in the moment and repeat the cycle later. Stories number 5. To fool by misunderstanding the meaning of a midnight deadline. This happened yesterday. My daughter was selected for an advanced orchestra and there was an option to submit a recording for a seating audition. The instruction is to submit by midnight February 24th. I assumed that we have the whole day of the 24th to finalize it and submit by 11:59 p.m. to meet the deadline. As you might come to expect, the submission portal was closed when I tried to access it in the evening. I guess the deadline was 12 a.m. February 24th. The foo is I didn't reach out and get clarification from the organizer, and now my daughter might be placed in the back of the orchestra even though she worked hard on this audition. We reach out to the organizer hoping that it was a mistake in setting up the deadline, but I guess technically they are correct. My wife is very upset with me as she asked us to submit earlier. We actually made some recording on Saturday, but my daughter wanted to get feedback from her teacher to see how she can improve and re-record on Monday. Throughout my life during school and work etc., when someone say, due by midnight on a day, it usually means that one has that day to work on the task. Lesson learned, need to get exact clarification when deadline is concerned. TLDR missed a midnight deadline and not able to submit for an audition. Stories number 6. Ex-husband's new GF wants family to cut all contact with me, so I'm divorced. I will freely admit that I'm most at fault for the divorce. I never should have been married, but hindsight is 20/20 as they say. My own family is a shit show and a half. I've known my ex's family for the majority of my life. When we split up, some of his family has kept in contact with me, including his mom and one of his sisters. It's nothing crazy, but we grab a drink from time to time and his mom just checks in to see how I'm doing. Knowing how my family is, she worries about me even though I tell her not to. We split a few years ago and the divorce was final more than a year and a half ago. Despite me being the asshole in my marriage, my ex doesn't have any crazy bitterness and we have a decent relationship now. In the years since we split, he's never had an issue with his family staying in contact with me. I know for sure because I've asked. Enter new GF. They've been together for 6 months or so. She's 27 and he's sneaking up on 40. Not that big of a deal, but she's not a fan of the fact that he's been married before. Actually, I'm the second ex-wife. As they've gotten more serious, she's taken extreme exception to the fact that his mom and sister in particular still keep in contact with me. I'm petty and laughed my ass off the first time she came at me about it all. Privately I talked with his mom and sister though and told them I totally understand if they need to cut contact to keep the peace. They assured me that they do what they want to do and not what the girlfriend of a hot minute demands. Since I am still in contact with them, she's taken the mature approach of posting all my misdeeds on social media. Some of which have impacts on people that don't deserve it. Well, maybe deserve it a little, but in any case, it's rocking a lot of boats. 3 weeks ago, I was out with friends at a bar. New GF was there with the ex. She was livid and demanded I leave immediately. I gave the appropriate response and laughed, turned around and continued my conversation. She proceeded to hit me from behind and smashed my head into the bar top. I lost consciousness for a few and when I came to, she was being pulled away and cops were being called. I declined charges at the time but was told if I change my mind to contact them. So since she's being petty and posting everything about me, I'm thinking maybe those charges sound a whole lot better. My ex is begging me not to, saying he will rein her in and get her to stop, but man, I want to pull the trigger now and just do it. As I've admitted, I'm not the good guy in this story, but am I the asshole if I do file charges against this girl? Relevant comments. Commenter 1, press charges for sure. Facebook won't do much, but you can print them out to show a pattern of aggression with her. It'll reinforce the assault charge and might get you a restraining order against her. Reply, even if what she's posting is the truth. She's not posting lies. But all the same, it's things from years ago and causing a lot of undue stress for people, including me. Commenter 2, your ex-husband here is kinda hilarious. I'm imagining he's standing in front of you, with you having the biggest black eye from getting your face smashed into the table by her, and having the audacity to basically say, I can fix her. Reply, this makes me smile because it is kinda like him. Imagine a hot massive 6 feet 4 inches former football player with the softest heart ever. He sees the best in everyone to his own detriment. He's really a great guy and deserves so much better. I don't know this girl's story but it's a safe bet he thinks he can fix her too. Commenter 3, husband has really not upgraded his game, he really needs therapy to stop with the toxic women. Reply, LOL, I'm pretty sure I told him this exact thing after the incident. Why didn't OOP press charges? Reply, to be fair, it's not for her. I have guilt about what I did to my ex. I was definitely the asshole to him. So I didn't press charges for him. But things have started to go off the rails since so, it wasn't for her, it was for my ex. He's ultimately a good guy that always wants to fix people that are in some way broken. Hence our doomed marriage. He knew going into it that I had issues. But he cared and wanted to give it a shot. I don't know much of anything about this girl because frankly I didn't feel like it concerned me, but maybe he felt she was his next one to fix and it's not going so well. OOP on the relationship with her ex-MIL. Reply, my ex-MIL is one of the best humans. She's long been the mother I always wished I had. Even when I was the asshole, she called me on it but still cared. I've told her and my ex that I understand and will bow out at any time but she's still there for me. OOP clarifies on being involved with her ex's family. Reply, I'm honestly not involved in my ex's life. My relationship with his sister predates our relationship and his mom only checks in on my life and fills me in on her friend gossip. And my ex is fine with this. We were friends long before our romantic relationship. And while we aren't friends, so to speak anymore, there isn't animosity. Did OOP know the GF and if she's apologetic? Reply, I honestly know next to nothing about this girl. While my ex moved past all our issues and we are good now, I don't feel the need to find out all the details on his new women. She was apparently highly intoxicated and he claims it's highly out of character for her to be physically violent. But the pettiness now is just too much. Did OOP have any kids with her ex-husband? Reply, we have no kids but he has one with his first wife. They don't live nearby anymore so her ire has been directed at me. First wife and I are very good friends if you can believe that, rolling on the floor laughing. How did the GF know about OOP's past with the ex? Reply, part of some therapy I was in, I had a journal where I wrote about things. I stupidly forgot it when I moved and it was with his things. She found it. She found therapy journals I forgot about and left behind. She's posting things from those. Update. First, thanks everyone for the feedback. Tried to read as much as I could and really appreciate some of the insights. So today I learned my ex actually did split with the GF this past weekend. After reading many of the comments, I decided I was going to go ahead with the charges. I gave my ex Mil a call just to let her know and so she could let my ex know so he had a heads up. I don't know or want to know the details of the breakup but he ended it and told his mom that he understands if I wanted to press charges and that he never should have asked me not to in the moment. I spoke with the officer today and that's done. Likely little will happen to her but at least there are consequences. I had a lot of people asking why we divorced in comments and DMs. Without getting too far into it, I've always been someone that didn't believe in monogamy or believe it was something I was capable of. My ex was aware of this going into our relationship and was on board for many years on our own definition of our marriage and relationship. Over the years, I could tell that it weighed on him so I tried to change, believe in the things he did but ultimately it just didn't work. I ended the marriage in large part because he wanted more kids and I did not. I wasn't an angel and the end was a little messy but we came to a good place. Thanks again for the messages and even for some of the funny terrible ones. Those made me laugh more than they should have. Top comments. Commenter 1, very happy you are pressing charges. People like that depend on folks not wanting to deal with it so never suffer consequences. When finally someone, you in this case, is brave enough or mad enough to involve police, the offender has no record and gets a lighter penalty. Thanks to you, if she does it again, things will start to get a little sticky for her. Good for you. And good for you and your ex being able to get on good terms. Commenter 2, so glad to hear you are pressing charges. Also no one's business why you and ex broke up. Wasn't relevant to the story and it sounds like you hold a lot of shame and guilt over it. You two just weren't compatible. Get yourself into therapy to deal with your feelings about it. You shouldn't live the rest of your life beating yourself up over what happened between you two. Stories number 7. Aita for refusing to move my wedding date because my sister decided to file for divorce the same weekend. So, I, 28F, am getting married in 6 months. We booked the venue over a year ago, sent out save the dates, everything is locked in. My sister, 32F, on the other hand, just announced she's officially filing for divorce, and apparently, she's decided to do it the same weekend as my wedding for symbolic reasons. She says she wants a fresh start and doesn't want to drag things out any longer. Which, okay, I get. Divorce sucks. But now my mom is acting like her divorce is the bigger event that weekend. She literally told me I should consider rescheduling so the family can be there for both of us. I was like, are you serious? My wedding has been planned forever. This is not some casual dinner reservation I can just move around. My sister could file her divorce papers anytime but chose this weekend because it felt right for her. I told her she was being selfish and making my wedding about her, and now she's crying to my mom about how I don't support her. My fiancé and dad are on my side, but my mom and some relatives think I'm being heartless for not making space for her pain. I'm sorry, but who plans their divorce around someone else's wedding? Aita for refusing to reschedule. Because I feel like this is insane. Stories number 8. Nail tech labels me no-show 15 minutes before my appointment. I had an appointment scheduled with this nail tech for yesterday at 10 a.m. I had spent the previous night with some friends doing a staycation at a local hotel and left early the next morning to make it to my appointment, which was 30 minutes away. I arrived 5 minutes before my appointment time and saw that I was already marked as a no-show and my deposit was forfeited. Before my appointment even started, she had already given my slot to her next client. After her last message, she blocked me. For context, apparently there is a policy where you must respond within 45 minutes before your appointment to keep it. In all my years of appointments I have never experienced a policy like this. When I booked with her last time, the only other time I saw her, I told her when I was on my way because she asked if I could come early and I said I would come as soon as I was out of work. In my opinion, this policy was not made clear at all. It was listed at the bottom of a policy list located in her Instagram story highlights. I had also confirmed my appointment with her 3 days prior and paid a deposit on the appointment. Comments. Commenter 1. This is a blatant grab for your deposit. Period. Please leave an accurate review with this information and dispute the charge. No-show policies are enforced when you don't show up. Not this BS. She's making it up as she goes, which is not good business. Commenter 2. Everything about this nail tech makes me wonder if she is actually licensed, or if she gained everything through posting on Instagram. Bizarre, and very unprofessional. Commenter 3. This is an absurd policy. If you have put money down to secure an appointment, that is the confirmation. Sure, if you had a 10 a.m. and didn't get there until 10:01 a.m., then she'd be a terrible practitioner technically, but well within her rights to cancel. Or if you hadn't put a deposit down and ghosted her ahead of time, even if you just didn't see the message, I can sort of see her point. But canceling you before your appointment, you can't no-show a 10 a.m. appointment at 9:15, it literally hasn't happened yet, after you had already confirmed before, I'm looking forward to it. And put a deposit down, and what gall she has to tell her next client to be on the way during the time your scheduled appointment with a deposit applied is for, which hasn't even happened yet. I'd charge back on your credit card and write terrible Yelp reviews. Policies like this are not applicable if they're located in her Instagram story highlights, and if she wants to enforce them, she needs proof you actually agreed to them, like a checkbox on your deposit checkout form. This is an easy win. If I put a deposit down, I do not respond to confirmation requests. I have money on the line. That's my confirmation. I'll be there or I'll cancel, and if I do neither, you can keep my deposit. Leave me alone. Please, for the sake of everything good in business, charge this deposit back. Report is as service not provided. You will absolutely win. Commenter 4. And now we know why she asked OP to come earlier the first time. She had done this to someone else. Commenter 5. Yep, she's definitely trying to double dip. Commenter 6. Write a review that explains what happened, other people deserve the heads up. Commenter 7. Also mention the ridiculously unprofessional communication. WTF is with these people who do this bullshit when they know they effed up. Makes the whole shit even more insufferable. LMAO. Commenter 8. TBH, I'm just as frustrated as you are. Sorry you didn't read the policies I spent so hard to write, this is too much. LOL. Commenter 9. Right. Does she expect us to feel guilty for making her have to write policies for her own business? Can't be doing with emotional manipulation like that. I'm doing a shitty thing to you, but I want you to feel bad for me about it. Lol no. Commenter 10. Check your payment method to see if you can rescind due to no service provided. Commenter 11. Been working chargebacks for years. 100% this is the way. All cardholders can initiate a dispute. And often they win. Most merchants never respond in time or can't prove services were rendered. Update. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for all of your responses. I did not expect this post to blow up like it did. For those wondering, yes, this was a real situation I experienced and not something I made up for karma. LOL. I've seen some questions about if I agreed to the policies. The answer is no, the policies were in an Instagram story highlight and at no point was I directed by the nail tech to find policies there. In fact, there was no mention of policies in our messages. I am currently working to get the deposit refunded. I don't feel comfortable sharing the tech's information publicly, but I have been and will continue to tell people local to me about the experience. As frustrated as I am with the situation, I don't want to be responsible for sending the wrath of the internet to this individual. I posted this with the intention of receiving honest feedback about my responsibility in this situation. I do take accountability in that I could have been more diligent with locating and reading policies. With that being said, I also believe that this policy was not made clear and that policy itself is ridiculous. I will not be associating further with this individual. Through sharing my experience, I received an overwhelming number of nail artist recommendations close to me. I look forward to exploring these talented artists. I also ended up doing my own nails and giving myself a gel mani at home. Home done nails. Comments. Commenter 1. Please do stay away, very weird of her. TBH LOL. Also just did my nails at home and we have matching manis. LOL. Reply. Our wallets are thanking us. LOL. Commenter 2. 100% I'm too cheap right now to pay to get my nails done even though I'm tempted. Haha. Also hope you file a CB for the deposit. Reply. I did. Commenter 3. The policy being on social media to me means it's not a contract. If it were on her website on the page you have to use to send the deposit, that would be one thing. I hope you get it back. Commenter 4. Exactly. Policies should either be linked directly to the place you purchase your deposit or select your appointments, requiring you to review the policy in order to proceed, or should be sent along each time an appointment is made. Having it in some vague corner of your internet presence, I feel that negates the legality. Stories number 9. Aita for cutting his daughter off and taking away the things I was doing for her after she had some type of relationship with the woman her father cheated with. F29. usually stay with my boyfriend Carl M38 on weekends. He lives with his daughter, F16, when she's in due to joint custody. He works a job that he hates because he has no opportunities for growing his career, so 7 months ago, he started a company with an associate, Gabby F35. She's definitely successful and knowledgeable, so my concern was what would happen if she ever decided to cut him off. I'm mentioning this because his contribution to their association was to bring clients but not technical or anything. For the past 5 months, he stayed out late while working on their plans. I never had any reason for doubt or suspicion until he went to meet her on a Sunday afternoon. I didn't say anything because I know starting a business requires lots of effort, but it's odd to allow an associate to interfere with family life. 2 weekends ago, she showed up and berated him for cheating on her. We were hanging out at his place with his 2 brothers, Mil, his daughter, and Sil. Gabby showed up knocking at the door while Carl was in the shower. I started getting weirded out when his family seemed hesitant to answer the door. His brother finally went to talk to her, but she walked past him and confronted me. She asked about our relationship. I'll admit that I was a bit rude because I got defensive. His other brother went to get Carl and it all turned into a shit show. At this point, I'm disgusted and I don't know who was the real girlfriend and who was the side chick. Also, it's worth noting that she accused his family of betraying her. Carl remained vague when I demanded some answers and I felt like slapping him, but I controlled myself. She stormed out after an ugly exchange. I broke up with him that same day and haven't been able to find my way back into a good mental state. I can't believe anything he says, so whatever he explains will be a lie. This is where I might be the asshole. I made the decision to pull my support for his daughter. I had been paying for a makeup subscription box but cancelled it. She was getting her prom dress as a loan from a friend of mine who has 4 girls. I told my friend what happened and we agreed that his daughter doesn't deserve any of my help. I also kicked them both out of my streaming services and will not help with the history school project, nor will I keep her in my magazine subscription plan. Carl reached out trying to discuss what I'm doing about his daughter. He said she's just a teenager and she shouldn't pay for his mistakes. I agree that she has no power to keep him from doing bad things nor to keep him from being a liar. And I know that she wouldn't be in a position to warn me that her dad was cheating. But, she's almost 17, next month, and she's very mature and she's definitely capable of telling right from wrong, and she had 0 problems getting stuff and receiving help and favors from me and was comfortable asking for things. She's not a brat or the demanding type. She low-key asked for stuff and I was happy to help. I'm sure she also benefited from Gabby because it makes sense since I'm under the impression that Gabby was no stranger to her either. I told him, let Gabby do it, and he tried to complain about how Gabby vandalized their website. She took their page down and all it shows is a black screen. He says she locked him out of all the logins and supposedly had all her contacts block him. The only thing giving a little joy right now is imagining him naked and holding his balls out in the cold. Aita. My friends are divided over this, not because of him but because they say she's just a teenager. Stories number 10. I, 24M, adopted my little sister, 8F, after our parents passed away. GF, 23F, isn't so excited about it. Last month, when my parents were driving back from my uncle's house outside the city, they encountered a moose on a remote road in the forest. My father, who was the driver, swerved at a high speed and hit into a tree. They both died on scene. Because it wasn't a very often used road, they were only discovered the next day by a passerby. My sister has been staying with my grandmother, who I'm not a great fan of. She would hit me when I was a kid, most of the time deservedly so, but also a lot of time unjustified. She said that she doesn't want to adopt my sister, so the next option was me. I agreed to it without question. We are very close and in the end she's my family and I love her to the end of the world. My sister moved in with my GF and 2 weeks ago. Obviously she's very scarred from what happened to our parents. We were both very close to them and they were great people. She still doesn't really talk much, only to me and sometimes my GF. We take her to therapy twice a week and there are improvements, even in such a short amount of time. Yesterday, after I stayed with my sister in her bed until she fall asleep, I went to my GF's room. She said that we have to talk about this situation. She said that we don't really have time for each other since my sister moved in. It's a fair point. We've only had sex once and that was when my sister was away, and even then I wasn't really into it at all. She said I should reconsider the adoption and maybe hand her over to my uncle and aunt. I refused. They're already busy as it is. My uncle isn't allowed to work because of a heart condition and because he didn't work long before being diagnosed. His disability fund isn't very big. My aunt works at a retirement home and that obviously doesn't pay great. They also pay for my cousin's university expenses while juggling taking care of my younger cousin, who's only 5. My GF is in her last year of university, so we don't have much money either. I luckily found a job after university in my field that pays pretty good, but it's been tough financially, though soon enough I will start receiving funds from the government for adopting my sister. My GF said that she isn't ready to become a mother, and overall having all these responsibilities of a parent, which I can understand, it's tough, and said that it's been putting a big strain on our relationship, which again is valid. Before, we'd get back from work and university and be off for the day, but now we have to pick my sister up from school, drive her to the therapist, and also take care of her a lot when she's home. She doesn't like to be alone. I told her that while she makes valid points, all of that goes out the window when this is my sister. I can't just throw her away because it's not easy, it won't be easy, and that I have to ride it out, but that she doesn't. It probably wasn't the right thing to say because it set her off. And she said that if I had to choose between my sister and her, who I would pick. I didn't answer, and we got into a bit of a verbal fight, after which I went to sleep on the couch, and I kind of broke down from everything that has been going on lately. I should like to add that my GF and I have been together for 9 years. She knew my parents and they loved her. She also knows my sister from birth, and I just can't understand how she could make me pick between them. I love both of them and I don't want to lose either of them. I think I need advice on what to do, or say with my GF, because I'm at a loss. Edit. I also want to add, because people seem to think that I just suddenly took my sister without even talking to my GF. That's not the case. We talked at it at length, and she said that we need to get her to come home to us, no matter what. That's why I was also really surprised as to what she had to say. Edit 2. I wanted to thank everybody for great advice too, and for everybody's condolences. Even thought we're all strangers here. Seeing words of encouragement is great and actually impactful and helpful. Thank you. Update. I'm taking my sister to therapy in a bit. After I get back home, my GF and I will talk about all this. Update 2. Okay, so we ended up talking about it for a while, and this is how it went down. At first my GF apologized profusely for the other night. She said she acted like a spoiled little shit and that it wasn't acceptable at all. I told her that I still love her the same even though what she said was hurtful, and that I understand it's a huge jump for her, and explained to her that she doesn't need to be a mother, just a friend or big sister to my sister, and that I don't want to push any responsibilities on her, and said that if she'd like to, we could both take a break from each other to process this. She refused and said she processed it and admitted that what she said was a result of everything changing so quickly, but she doesn't want or need a break because she realized she was in the wrong. She said that she regretted what she said almost immediately, but thought that the damage was done, and that I will break up with her, and she was scared to approach me because of that. Next she told me that she didn't mean to make me pick between them, and said herself that if someone posed her that question if she was in that situation, she would drop them, and was thankful for me withholding that decision until we had a talk about it. She said it arose from her feeling distanced from me, and jealousy that I was spending a lot of time with my sister but had to spend less with her as a result. She understands why though. It's necessary I take care of my sister while she's hurting, and said she wishes to help me with that as much as she can, and that she would like to help me get through this as well. She admitted that for the past 13 years, I've been her everything, and that for those 2 weeks she thought she's losing me, and it terrified her, but after talking about it with some of her close friends, she saw that she wasn't losing me. Just that a very important thing popped up in my life that had to be taken care of, and it was gonna take a lot of my attention, which was previously focused mostly on her. She said that she wants me to know I can depend on her in terms of responsibility about my sister, and that she will do her best to be good to my sister, and I can see that, compared to yesterday or the day before, my GF really tried with my sister today. Initiated conversations with her and helped her out with homework and picking out some clothes before going to the therapist today. It was as if seeing my GF go from being a child to an adult in a matter of a day. I also admitted some of my faults, such as neglecting her over the past few weeks, although unintentionally I realize it can have an impact on a person, and also not really giving her that much of a say on the matter whether my sister will come here to stay. We came up with a few things, namely that we must definitely go to therapy sooner than later. She suggested leaving my sister with my aunt and uncle for a few hours over the weekend while we go and sort that out, and also that we need to be able to balance our time more efficiently, so we can have at least a bit more time to reconnect with each other. Then she told me that she's sorry for not helping me grieve or finding time to do that, and that our fight was a wake-up call for her not being supportive enough of me through what happened recently, and that she will do whatever she can to make up for her oversteppings recently. It was at this point that the whole entire month hit, like a train. I cried a lot while she was hugging me and giving me words of reassurance and comfort through the whole thing, while allowing me to release what I've been holding on to this past month. This was my GF as I knew her, a very caring person, and I really hoped that what she showed 2 days ago wasn't her real face as people are saying, but merely a reaction stemming from insecurity, but I guess only time can tell that. I think it was a positive thing to do, and obviously there's still tons more where that came from, but it's a step in the right direction. When I came back home with my sister, we all played cards and I just felt like we were a family. It's a good feeling. As of the time that I'm writing this, I put my sister to sleep and today she didn't take much time to fall asleep at all, she pretty much drifted off after a forehead kiss and some cuddling. I'm in the living room on the couch right now, my girlfriend is taking a shower and we're planning to watch a movie together, and honestly I'm thankful to everyone who gave me advice over the past few hours. I don't think I could have kept a level head so much if so many haven't had offered different points of view and sound advice. One thing I learned from this ordeal is that communication, especially in times of stress like this, is vital, and that before making important decisions, it's good to talk to your partner and see if they maybe have an explanation for what they did, but also being ready for the worst. I went into the conversation with my GF being ready to break up if her view hadn't changed because, like it or not, for the time being my sister is a priority, and I think that 2 days ago my GF didn't understand why and couldn't accept it, but after talking to her, and explaining why I have to take care of my sister like this, she now understands and accepts it. Once again, thanks to everyone who offered advice, and while this is a great community, I hope I'm never in a position difficult like this where I have to ask for advice, although who knows what will happen. Relevant comments. What a wonderfully brave and noble thing you've done by adopting your younger sister. I'm certain your parents are so proud of you. Please don't consider sending your sister off. She has already gone through so much. You made the decision to do this. Your girlfriend has the right to leave the relationship. She does not, however, have the right to make you feel bad about the decision you have made. I wish you well. Don't worry about that, it's never even been an option in my head. While I love my girlfriend a lot, she was my first everything, but if push comes to shove, and she does make me pick, I already know who I will choose, and unfortunately it's not going to be my GF. What I do want to do is try my best to make this work with her, and hope we can see eye to eye, but I suppose that's on her. Pick your sister. Your sister has no choice in this. Your girlfriend has a choice to stay or leave. Oh, I already know that if she does make me choose that I'm sticking with my sister. I guess I just want some advice to maybe prevent splitting off from my GF so I don't have to pick, that we could see eye to eye, but from what people have been saying, that's likely not gonna be possible. Commenter. I'm not dictating she send her money on my sister because my GF doesn't earn any money, she's still in uni, which just proves you skimmed through my post. Also, if you read other replies you will see I did discuss it with my GF and she was all for taking my sister. I'm not forcing anyone to do anything. My GF doesn't really interact with my sister either, her life is mostly unchanged apart from the fact we can't really spend as much time together. Also, the argument about knowing my GF longer than my sis has been alive is irrelevant. My sister is my sister, and adding to that, she, and myself, lost our both parents. You're not into sex because your parents died recently, she's being selfish and not supportive about their death. Even if the sister issue is real for her, she should have at least waited for you to mourn first. You ever heard that saying, a madman sees what he sees? The GF has a partner that just lost his parents, an orphaned 8-year-old in his care, but all she sees is how their loss and grief is inconveniencing her. The problem OP has is that if she is incapable of showing compassion and empathy for such a huge life event, there's no way she'll show any empathy for anything else. This can't believe how far I had to scroll for this comment. It is totally acceptable for girlfriend to not want this kind of responsibility. That is her right and her choice. But sheesh. The man you love, who you have been with for almost a decade, lost both his parents a few weeks ago. Two people that loved you also. Not only is he dealing with this massive loss, which probably still hasn't completely hit him yet, he is also trying to care for a much younger sister physically and emotionally. Curious, OP, did you have any discussion with your GF before you decided to take your sister into your home, and also is your GF typically not empathetic? Yeah, we did have a discussion, I forgot to include it because I was really tired, but yeah, we did discuss it, and my GF was all for taking my sister. I think it might have been the matter of reality striking her in the face when my sister moved in. And I don't think she's had any troubles with being empathetic. Over the years not that many bad things happened really, but if I was feeling burned out from uni and all, she would be the first to comfort me and make me feel better, so it came off as a huge surprise to me. And in terms of my parents being gone, you're completely right, I haven't even had time to accept it. I had to arrange the funeral with some help from my aunt and uncle, then having to fuck around with the bureaucracy of adopting my sister, being scared that she might be put into adoption if the government somehow determines I'm unfit to take care of her, then lately just the whole mess of more paperwork regarding changing my sister's school, dealing with lawyers about my parents' will, dealing with trying to get child benefits while going to work, getting home, making some food for all of us, taking care of my sister, trying to help her with homework, help her with grieving, and spending time with my GF. Virtually I haven't even had time to think, and the only time I could was 2 nights ago when I went to sleep on the couch. It all kind of hit me and I just broke down. Hell, even last week when I got home from work and I didn't want to cook, I tried calling my mother to ask if we could come in for dinner, then I only realized that they're not there anymore. You are a great brother and your sister is very lucky to have you. I agree with people saying that your sister is forever and you seem to be a great person, in which your sister will have a best buddy in the future. Your girlfriend is of course in a hard position, as she is 23 and taking care of a child is a great responsibility, mentally, financially, whatever, and you know, people are not prepared for such a commitment in this age, in my opinion. It makes me think, couldn't you and your GF live separately for some time? It would make her feel not like a mother so much, she could find some fun roommates and enjoy her last year and help you with your sister whenever it is possible and suitable for her. I feel like breaking up on the spot with your longtime spouse over such a tragic situation, as the death of your parents is, will not benefit anybody. Is there a possibility for such an arrangement? I don't think it's really possible for us to split like that. My GF hasn't on the greatest terms with her parents in over 10 years, even since before we were together, and the fact that they moved to another country and my GF hasn't even spoken a word to them since going to uni doesn't really help that case. She would stay over at my house a lot when we were teens because of constant fights between her and her parents. Roommates on the other hand could be a good option to look into, if we don't manage to solve this in a better way. Maybe you can assure your GF that your sister is your responsibility not her, so if you don't want to choose you have to try to give her less responsibilities. Of course if she won't stay with you her life will change, but you have to explain her that your sister is your family and you can't and don't want leave her. You also have to explain to your GF that she is not becoming a mother but just a big sister. I haven't even pushed any responsibilities on her, because I know she's very busy with university. I'm back from work sooner than she is from university and thank God sooner than my sister finishes school, so I usually cook some food for us all, then pick up my sis and try to balance between the two of them. And admittedly I have been spending more time with my sister, but I think that's understandable given how it has impacted her. I asked my GF nothing apart from at least trying to connect with my sister. Can you try to have a calm discussion with your GF and communicate the points you've mentioned here and maybe a few other things? Specifically, I'd go with something like, your aunt and uncle are already stretched with their current situation and you don't believe they will be able to look after your sister as well as you can. You want to try to ensure that your sister is as well cared for as possible and you believe that will be with you. Letting your sister down when she genuinely needs you is not an option. Your GF can look at the current changes selfishly, or she can hopefully see that your actions show that you'll be there for anyone who is important to you, especially during tough times. Would your GF want to be with someone who wouldn't do that? You know that the change will be difficult to begin with, but it will get easier over time. It doesn't change anything with how you feel about your GF and you're hoping that the two of you will support each other through it rather than fighting each other. What would your GF do if her closest family member needed help in a really bad time? Presumably she would help and she would want you to be supportive. If so, she should be able to understand your POV and you're hoping that she will act like she would want you to act if the situation were reversed. If that doesn't work, then I would start to prepare for the worst. I hope it works out for you though. Like others have said, adopting your sister is absolutely the right thing to do and you should definitely do it, no matter what. Even if it means your GF threatens to leave, especially if she threatens to leave, in fact. Good luck. I'm gonna use all the advice I got in this thread to try and work it out with her after we put my sis to sleep tonight. I don't believe my GF is a bad person, but I think this is just a reaction, as much as pulling a hand away from a hot stove would be. It's just not physical but mental in this occasion, and I really want to do my best to keep my GF, but I just cannot sacrifice my relationship with my sister. She's only 8 and going through things no child should. Okay, I am going to come at this in another way than many other posters. Someone I know adopted a child. She had wanted children for 10 years, but a month after the child came home, my friend phoned me and said she wanted to cancel the adoption. The little girl had attached to her husband, not her, didn't talk much, and their whole lives had suddenly changed. She didn't get to ease herself into being a parent through the baby years. Suddenly she was second place in her relationship, everything had become about her daughter and she didn't know where she fit into this new dynamic. She felt like an outsider. She totally panicked, but she learned from her therapist that this is very common. Things were hard for 6 months, but now she and her daughter are very close. Not exactly the same situation of course, but parts of it may be relevant. Even having your own child can be like throwing a grenade into a healthy relationship, and here you also have to add in a grieving child and traumatized boyfriend. Of course she comes across as callous and selfish, but you know her better than we do. The sex thing flagged up to me the outsider feeling and why she wants to put everything back into the box and go back to how it was. She was open to the situation initially, but I suspect the reality is hitting home now given the time frame. Add to all this the fact you said she is under extreme stress with uni and also that her own relationship with her family is awful. She may have different ideas of attachment or passing people on than you do because her parents weren't the loving ones you had. Not an excuse, but you have been with her for 9 years, you mentioned going through hard times and I sense this ultimatum has thrown you because it is out of character. I am guessing you posted here because you don't want to go immediately to the nuclear option. The most sensible suggestion here is sitting down and saying to your girlfriend that while you love her, your sister is non-negotiable, so you want to try to find a way to work through this if she accepts that. She needs to start with a counselor. You also need space to grieve and comfort your little sister too. Of course she could just be selfish and awful, but there is so much going on here and you are both very young, so as an almost 40-year-old, her reaction comes across badly, but I was also selfish and a bit dramatic at 24 if we're being honest here. Your sister has to come first of course though. Lastly, you are trying to sort everyone else around you out, please make sure you somehow find time to process your own feelings. You can't pour from an empty cup. Hey, thanks a lot for this contentful response, if that's a word. What I'm trying to say is a long answer with a lot of very useful advice and information, especially the first paragraph put things into perspective from her point of view to me. And regarding her coming off as selfish and all, while it's true that what she said did come off like that, after reading posts here I believe it could be just a reaction, as much as pulling a hand away from a hot stove would be, just mentally in this case. I'm not saying that's for definite, she could be just that type of person but after being in a relationship with her for 9 years and before that, having her as my best friend since I was 10, I just don't think that's the case here, and I can totally understand people telling me to leave her. At first when she said if I was to choose between her and my sister I damn near told her to proverbially kick rocks. I'm happy I didn't though and I want to try to resolve this as adults should. I am guessing you posted here because you don't want to go immediately to the nuclear option. And yeah, that's exactly right. I love both of them the same, and although what she said hurt me, it doesn't make me love her any less and leaving her before at least trying to work this out because I believe we can. I'm just overall not great with words and not a great judge of situations so I wanted to get other people's input on this. Lastly, you are trying to sort everyone else around you out, please make sure you somehow find time to process your own feelings. You can't pour from an empty cup. Starting this thread and reading the replies really made me realize that I really should do this. It's just really hard what with everything I'm dealing right now and unfortunately closing myself off for a bit and going through this isn't possible, not yet. I really wanted to try to go to a therapist for at least a few visits, with my GF if possible but even disregarding finances, I don't really have the time for it. Thank you for your advice, I'm definitely gonna take it to heart when I discuss this whole thing with my GF tonight after I put my sister to sleep. Update, I, 24M, adopted my little sister, 8F, after our parents passed away. GF, 23F, isn't so excited about it. A lot happened since my first post. In the end, my GF, now ex I guess, couldn't deal with the fact that I had a new priority. I admit that I wasn't the best at managing time between them two and I would spend a lot more with my sister than my GF but I think that's understandable, maybe. In general, my GF was on and off with my sister, one day she would be the nicest person to her and the other would completely blow her off and be borderline mean. I had a few talks with her that it needs to stop, but it would only end up working for maybe the rest of the week and the next it would be back to square one. About 3 weeks ago it erupted into a big argument, she accused me of not loving her anymore, and that I play favorites. I told her they're not my children to be playing favorites and that obviously for some time my sister is gonna need a lot more attention, since you know she lost her parents. In the end, she went back to her ultimatum, sister or her. I was angry at this point, because she has been mean to my sister that day, and I told her she can pack her shit and find a place to sleep tonight. I haven't seen her since and quite frankly I don't really want to. We texted for a bit, basically both sides confirming it's over and arranging when she can come for the rest of her stuff. As for my sister, she's a lot better. She doesn't stay in her room all day anymore and she's slowly going back to her talkative old self. She still doesn't like being alone but it was the same before the accident, so since my GF moved out, we've been sharing a bed for comfort. She still wakes up at night crying sometimes so it's better when I'm there and frankly it's a lot more comfortable. One thing I really regret is my sister heard that whole fight and she started apologizing to me for breaking me and my GF up. I assured her it's not her fault at all and if anything she helped me see for who my GF really was. She still goes to her therapist and it's really helped a ton. She doesn't need me to be there while she falls asleep and doesn't panic when I go to the shop for 15 minutes. All in all, these past 3 months have been the hardest time in my life but eye-opening to my ex's disregard for my family and kind of me too. Sorry for no happy ending, I guess this is how real life is. Edit 2. I would love to thank everybody for kind words individually but with this amount it's crazy, so I want to give everyone who gave me advice and kind words a huge thank you to everybody, you're all amazing. These numbers are overwhelming and I can't even express in words how it feels that so many people care, it's really something else. Didn't expect that strangers on the internet could make me cry either, so once again a huge thank you. Relevant comments. I remember this from 2 months ago and I gave you the following advice. pick your sister. Your sister has no choice in this. Your girlfriend has a choice to stay or leave. You agreed with me at the time and I am glad that you adopted your sister. As you can see, your now ex-girlfriend showed her true colors and left. I am glad that your sister is doing better. Make sure that your sister understands that it is your ex's fault, not hers. A girlfriend is easily replaceable. I wish you and your sister the best. Yeah, I remember everyone telling me to dump her, and honestly I would have probably been doing myself a favor there, but I was blind. Thank you so much for being the kind of man this world needs, especially in such a tough position. Have you thought about joining a group for newly single parents? Or a grieving support group? I think it would be good for you to be around people who appreciate what you're doing and empathetic of the struggle. That's a really good idea and I haven't even thought of it even. The thing is, my free time is really limited. After work I have to be at home with my sis, and by the time the weekend comes around, I'm honestly drained from work and pretty much constantly stressing over stuff, so I try to regenerate as much as I can before work again on Monday. I'll check around if there's anything like that in my area on a weekend. Maybe I could spare an hour or two. Thanks for the advice. You did the right thing, and you're a great brother to your sister. I do want to mention that sleeping in the same bed is not a healthy coping mechanism at her age and shouldn't go on very long if you want the best for your sister. It's totally understandable that she wants comfort, but if you could find a better way, that probably best. The sleeping on the same bed thing isn't for coping, I think, more for comfort. My bed is a lot more comfortable than the one in the spare room, and as my sister puts it, I'm a warm, life-sized teddy bear. May I suggest something, apart from your situation? I am very glad you put your sister first. She is very vulnerable right now. Enroll your sister in martial arts. It will help her confidence immensely, and help her overcome that fear she feels at night. And bless you for stepping in, take care of each other. Actually, I think that's a good idea. I trained BJJ for a few years and it really is a confidence booster. I'll have a talk with her if she'd like that, or maybe a different martial art, and maybe we can make it happen. Thanks for the idea. Hey, absolutely incredible what you're doing. I have an enormous amount of respect for you. Maybe we could do a small fundraiser to help make things a little easier. Do you think that would help? Luckily, I'm okay money-wise, and with my GF out the picture means I'll have even more, haha. Thanks for the offer though, it warms my heart a lot to see people willing to help so much. Stories number 11. Aita for not asking my father to walk me down the aisle. I, 27F, am engaged, planning to get married to my partner, 30F, of 3 years next year. Since I came out as bi, when I was 15, my dad hasn't been supportive of me. He was upset when I first told him about my fiancée and has made it clear he doesn't approve of me being with a woman. He's distant when I take her to my parents' home for dinner, won't talk to her when making conversation at the dinner table. When my fiancée isn't around, he's made a lot of subtle cutting comments about our relationship despite me telling him to back off. He makes it clear in general that he doesn't see her as family. Basically, he's been casually homophobic my entire life, you know the type. He's not providing any financial support for the wedding, and when I asked if he would actually be attending the wedding he just gave me a snide "we'll see," so I honestly wasn't even expecting he would turn up. Part of our intended wedding ceremony will involve me being walked down the aisle and given away. I enjoy a lot of the classic wedding traditions and that's one I really want to carry out. I assumed my dad wouldn't want to walk me down the aisle, TBH I don't want him to either, so I asked a male friend, 58M, instead, 1 week ago. This man has known me for almost half my life. He's like a mentor to me and honestly has been more of a father figure to me than my actual dad has. I love him like a paternal figure. We met when I was 16, he was teaching an acting class I signed up for, we both work in theater. He's provided lots of emotional support over the years and been openly supportive of my relationship from the start. He has 2 sons around my age and has said before he sees me a bit like the daughter he never had. He said he'd be honored to give me away. My dad learned of this fact recently, I'm not sure how. He's furious. He says I'm undermining his authority as a parent and making him look like an asshole fool to everyone who attends the wedding, and if I insist on going through with this he won't attend at all. There's no way he's going to sit at a table and watch some other man give me away. He's pissed I didn't ask him. After he said that I asked if he would have said yes, he dodged the question and yelled at me and eventually hung up on me. I admit I didn't consider asking him and I honestly didn't see the need to. I guess it'll be embarrassing for my dad if he comes, but considering his behavior towards me and my fiancée over the course of our relationship, I don't feel like he's justified to make this demand. Am I the asshole for not asking my actual dad to walk me down the aisle? Update. Hi Aita, I posted here 3 years ago. This update is obviously long overdue, but things have been intense the past few years, so I forgot about this account for a long time. I remembered it while browsing some other subreddits and thought I would share my update because things are better than I ever thought they could be back in 2020. So COVID obviously scuppered our wedding plans. it was meant to be in January 2021, but by that time our country still wasn't in stable enough condition to throw the big wedding with friends and family we wanted. I also lost my job because my company closed, so we wanted to watch our budget. My dad got COVID early in the pandemic and it was bad enough that he ended up in hospital. Visiting rules were strict and only my mom could visit him, and they were both actually really scared he might die. He didn't, but it affected him for a long time afterward. He started going back to church when things opened up a bit. Both my parents are Catholic, but my mom was always the more religious one. He was a bit more lapsed, and you guys will not believe this, my wife and I were shocked. That was what made him realize he was a bit of a homophobic AH. The church he went to is quite progressive and is big on the whole, accept everyone exactly as they are because that is how God made us and only God can judge stuff, and the almost dying from COVID thing apparently gave him a different outlook on things. Cut a long story short, we started seeing each other more, we had a lot of long emotional talks. He slowly started apologizing to me and my wife for being an AH, including the wedding thing, and we are now closer than we have been since I was a teenager. Both he and my mentor were at our makeup wedding last year. We ended up making the ceremony a lot less formal than planned because I guess living through COVID gave us different outlooks too. My wife and I just wanted to have a fun time and not care too much about strict traditions. So we ended up walking down the aisle together while all our family and friends sat and watched and cheered. LOL. Things are good. We have dinner with my parents at least once a month and it's awesome. I found a better job and we're more financially stable now and thinking about having kids. I'm excited. Thanks Aita for the judgments and responses back then, and I guess I want to tell everyone that sometimes things work out even when you don't expect them to. Life can surprise you, so look forward to those surprises. Stories number 12. Aita for not making my son forgive my brother after he was uninvited from his wedding. 6 months ago my son Leo, 14M, decided to cut off my brother Jack, 46M. Now my mum, brother, SIL and other family members want me to make my son forgive him to keep the peace. For a little bit of context, I'm 46M, a single dad. My family has always helped me in many ways, mostly babysitting when Leo was younger, and even before my son was born, we were all very close. We all live relatively close to each other, so we've been able to keep in touch with weekly gatherings, spending the holidays together, etc. Everyone loves my son and my son loved them back. However, my brother Jack was always my son's favorite person. Back when my son was 3 to 4 years old, Jack and his wife had more flexible jobs than me, think freelancing versus a 9 to 5, so they always volunteered to look after Leo, something he loved. Almost every month they would take him to the zoo, or the aquarium, or they'd even go camping with him. As my son grew older, he started to develop the same interests as my brother, like video games, photography, and music. When Leo was 9, he told me he wanted to have the same career as his uncle. This is all to say, they were extremely close. Last year my brother informed me that he and his GF Mary were getting married. I knew that neither Jack nor his GF believed in marriage, so when I asked them about it, they told me it was all Karen's idea, my SIL's mom. Because Jack and Mary didn't care much about the wedding, and since Karen was paying for it, they let her plan everything, from the venue to the food, music, etc. Karen decided to plan a destination wedding at a fancy resort. In July of last year we received the invitation, and it was addressed to both me and my son. I even had a +1 if I wanted. And as soon as the website went up, I tried to make a reservation for our hotel room. I should clarify that I had to call the hotel to make my reservation because the link wasn't working and I really couldn't risk not getting a room. When I received the email confirmation, it said, room for 2 adults, but I didn't think much of it and just assumed it was an error due to the language barrier with the hotel guy. I also bought the plane tickets for us around the same time. Fast forward to January, less than a month before the wedding, when my SIL called me crying saying that Karen had made a mistake with the venue. Apparently, the resort was for adults only, so they didn't allow anyone younger than 16. My son was 13 at the time. I asked her if it would be possible for Leo and me to stay in another hotel, but they told me the whole resort was child-free, so my son wouldn't even be allowed to attend the ceremony or the reception. I was disappointed and I told my SIL I'd talk to my son about it. I knew how excited he was about his uncle's wedding, but she insisted both her and Jack wanted to tell him in person. Honestly, my son was devastated. He started crying as soon as he was told he wouldn't be able to go. He pleaded with them and even offered to give them all of his savings so they could move the wedding. After 30 minutes of this, my SIL got frustrated and just told him that he was being selfish and that this day wasn't about him. Leo eventually apologized and went to his room. After the wedding, my son just stopped talking to my brother. If Jack sent him a message, Leo would just ignore it unless it had something to do with me. For example, he would only reply if Jack asked him to tell me something because he couldn't reach me, etc. On our family gatherings, Leo would only respond to small questions like, "Can you pass the salt?" or "Help grandma with the plates," but he would ignore my brother if Jack or Mary tried to start a conversation or ask him about school, etc. A month after the wedding, Jack and Mary offered to take him for a special vacation during spring break to make up for the wedding, but my son just ignored them and he later told me he didn't want to go with them. It was heartbreaking because I knew how much he wanted to go to that place and I wasn't able to afford it yet, but he stuck to his guns. Something similar happened on Leo's birthday. He asked me if I was planning to throw him a party. I do it every year, and when I said yes he asked me not to invite his aunt and uncle. I tried to convince him to invite them because they're family and they were really sorry, but he just said that if they didn't want him on their special day, he didn't want them on his. My brother was crying when I told him he wasn't invited. However, things came to a head this past weekend. We were at my mum's house and the conversation of Leo's university came up. My mum asked Leo if he was still planning on going to the same university as Jack and that he should start planning for that, but my son replied that he wasn't interested anymore and he had chosen to study something else. Then my mum said, "I thought you wanted to be like your uncle," and my son just said, "Why would I want to be like him?" At this point I intervened and told Leo he didn't have to be so rude, but the damage was already done. Both my brother and Sil heard what he said and they left shortly after. Last night my brother texted me saying I was an asshole for letting my son continue with this grudge and he even accused me of being jealous of their relationship and that's why I wasn't doing anything to fix it. I just told him these were the consequences of his actions and that this was 100% his fault by allowing his POS mother-in-law to plan the wedding when she obviously hated my child. He hung up on me. My mum and some other family members think I should force my son to forgive my brother so we can all move on, claiming there was no ill intent and it was just a small mistake. But I don't think I should. My son was clearly hurt and he should be allowed to heal and forgive them only when he's ready. So Aita Reddit, sorry I stopped responding yesterday. I got distracted by a Civ 6 game after seeing the reveal for 7 LOL. I'm going through all the comments and I just wanted to answer a question I've seen like 10 times now. I did not go to the wedding. I didn't want to leave my son alone while most of the family was away and it just didn't feel right going to the wedding after what happened. Additional information from OOP on the family conversations. His response was rude because of the tone, not because of what he said. He said what he said, and using a very specific tone, to get a reaction out of his uncle. That's why it was rude. He wasn't just responding to the, rather inappropriate, question asked by grandma. He was acting up. He was trying to pick a fight. Trust me, I've heard that tone many times before. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I understand why he is hurt and angry. I have respected his boundaries and helped him navigate this as best as I can, but that doesn't mean I have to accept him picking up a fight every chance he gets. As for the conversation, I didn't include my reactions because I didn't consider it relevant. Paraphrasing, of course, it went something like this. Mary, we made a mistake and you won't be able to go to the wedding. Leo, but why? You invited me. I want to go. Mary, the place where the wedding is taking place only accepts adults. You can't enter. Leo, I don't get it. Can't you make an exception? Me, they can't. It's not up to Mary and Jack. Remember when you tried to get a part-time job at the pub and the owners told you they can't have children inside, let alone working there? It's like that. Leo, can you get married somewhere else? Mary, we can't. We already paid a lot of money for that place. Leo, I can give you my savings. I have X. Mary, it's not enough and it's not just us who spent money, all the guests already spent a lot of money and they don't want to lose it. Leo, my dad has money. He can give you money so I can go. Please, I want to be at the wedding. It's not fair. Jack, I'm sorry, Leo. But we can make it up to you. What do you say if we take you to Greece after the wedding? You always wanted to go. Leo, getting more and more upset, I don't wanna. I wanna go to the wedding. Why don't you want me there? Me, Leo, it was a mistake. They wanted you there, but we all made a mistake, and we didn't realize sooner there was a minimum age. Leo, it's not fair. Why did they invite me then? I want to be with my uncle on his special day. Mary, raising her voice, this is not our fault. It just happened and you need to let it go. I'm sorry you can't be there, but you need to stop being selfish. This is my special day, not yours. Then Leo broke down. Like I wrote in another comment, I tried to console him and I just shot Mary a "shut up" look without saying anything at the moment. Jack did tell her something but I didn't hear what he said. Once he calmed down, Leo said he was sorry and asked me if he could go to his room. Mary and Jack were saying sorry but Leo didn't even look at them. I followed my son to his room to make sure he was okay, and he asked me to leave. I went back to the living room. Me, WTF is wrong with you? You have no right to yell at my son. Mary, I'm sorry. I'm too stressed. We had been fighting with my mum about this for 2 months. Me, I don't care. I told you on the phone he would be disappointed and you made it worse. Get out. Jack, please Jacob, she didn't mean it. I'll make it up to Leo. Me, I said I don't care. Get out. Then they left and I just went to check on Leo. I don't have a photographic memory so I don't remember every single word that was said, but this is the gist of what happened that day. Aita has no consensus bot, OOP was NTA. Relevant comments. Redditors are telling OOP not to force Leo to talk and forgive Jack. Reply, yeah, I agree that the initial conversation was a mess. I was pretty upset when my SIL called Leo selfish but I didn't want to make things worse so I just let it go. I know I should do more but I don't want to push Leo too much, you know. We had a small fight when I told him he still had to respond when asked to do things, etc. Honestly, it was my idea not to skip the family gatherings. I told him that he should go for the sake of everyone else who loved both him and my brother since they'd be sad not to see either. He eventually agreed to make grandma happy. To be fair to my mum, she ripped my brother a new one when she found out what had happened. However, she insists that Jack is genuinely sorry and is trying to make it up to Leo but that Leo isn't helping by holding a grudge. She thinks it's not healthy for Leo. OOP on Leo's mother and where she was in all of this. Reply, my ex and I got divorced when Leo was 2, and she decided to move back to her home country. We kept in contact regularly for a few years until she married again. These days she only calls on Christmas and on his birthday. Is Leo in therapy? Reply, yes. I got him into therapy in May, after his birthday. I started looking for one after he told me he didn't want to invite his uncle. I have no excuse but I honestly didn't know it'd take so long to find him a therapist, it was almost 2 months. OOP on his interactions with Mary's mother. Reply, sorry. I haven't interacted much with her outside of some large family gatherings but basically she's the type of person who always complains about kids running around, or how she cannot drink freely because there's kids in the room and she made some rude comments about my sister having too many kids, she only has 3. I did ask Jack several times if Karen had done this on purpose, but he insisted it was an honest mistake. I'm just not sure I believe it. I haven't interacted much with her, but in the few times we did, she was always the first to complain about kids. You know, like kids running around, screaming, etc. She also made several comments about not being able to drink freely because of the kids or making passive-aggressive comments towards my sister when she was pregnant with her youngest. Maybe I'm biased and she's never like this outside of these events, but she didn't leave a good impression. Imo. OOP on how long his brother had been with Mary. Reply, for the record, my brother has been with Mary since they were 22. So Mary has always been around. Update. So I've received some messages asking for an update. I appreciate everyone who took the time to comment and send me messages. Some may have been a bit harsh but I deserved it. Thanks for slapping some sense into me. The short version is that we'll stop going to the family events for a while. I talked to my brother and he will respect my son's boundaries, and he also explained what really happened. And, above all, Leo is doing much better now. Here's the longer update in case anyone's interested in the details. Mom and sister. The short of it is that I informed my mum that both Leo and I would stop going to the family gatherings until things calmed down and, more importantly, until he felt comfortable again. She was understandably upset but I think she finally understood how much she had been hurting Leo. What surprised me is that my mum told me that Jack had become depressed so she was worried about him, and that's why she was so insistent that Leo should forgive him. I basically told her that if we forced Leo to forgive my brother, we risked pushing him away from us. As for my sister, she was also sad when I told her we'd stop going to the family gatherings but she said she understood. However, she suggested we make our own weekly tradition so the children can still hang out, and that's what we've been doing for the last couple of weeks. We decided my nibblings would come to my house one week and then Leo would hang out at hers the next. So far it seems to be working and Leo is happy with this arrangement. I think it helps that he isn't being pressured by the adults expecting him to talk to his uncle. Jack and Mary. The weekend after I posted here, I texted my brother asking him to meet me so we could talk. I had told him that I wanted to speak with him alone so Mary wasn't present. Jack immediately apologized and said how much he regretted what he had done and the things he had told me. He confirmed what I already suspected and said he was stressed because of the constant fights with Mary. He mentioned that he had considered divorce because of how bad the fights got. I may seem cruel here but I basically told him that I didn't care about that. What I wanted was for him to tell me the truth about what the hell had happened. Jack maintains that he didn't know about the venue being child-free until last November. However, like many of you suspected, Mary had known for quite a while, maybe even the whole time. Apparently, This all started a few years back when Jack and Mary took Leo to the beach. While they were playing, my son had accidentally called Jack Dad before quickly correcting himself. From what Jack told me, it was a small mistake like when you call a teacher Mom. Leo was embarrassed, but Jack just laughed it off. The catch? Jack's MIL, Karen, and FIL had joined them for that vacation and they overheard Leo when that happened. When they came back from their vacation, Karen had gone ballistic claiming she was triggered by some random kid calling Jack Dad knowing that Mary can't have children. Mary had tried to explain it was just a misunderstanding, but Karen became extremely toxic and abusive towards Mary and she started making demands like not inviting Leo over when Karen visited, etc. So when Jack and Mary decided to get married, and since they initially just wanted to elope and not have a party at all, Karen manipulated Mary and convinced her to let her plan the perfect wedding for her only daughter. Mary gave in because she was sick of several years of emotional manipulation and she just wanted to keep the peace. So Karen hijacked the wedding and she chose the child-free venue on purpose. Mary discovered this when the venue was booked or shortly after, but she didn't say anything because every time she tried to argue, Karen would play the victim and stuff. Mary claimed that she had tried to negotiate with the resort that an exception be made so the children could attend the ceremony reception even if they stayed in a different hotel, but the manager stood firm on the policy. But the closer they got to the date, the more anxious she got until she finally admitted the truth to Jack in November. According to my brother, Mary exploded to Leo because of all the constant bullying and manipulation from her own mother, and she also felt extremely guilty by letting things get that far. For his part, Jack said that if he had found out before, he would have stepped in and cancelled the wedding rather than exclude Leo and my sister's children. But by that point a lot of people had already booked their flights and hotel rooms, so cancelling wasn't an option. In the end, I told my brother that none of that excused the way they had behaved, especially his wife. She was a 40-plus-year-old woman picking a fighting with a kid. She had yelled and called him selfish when all Leo wanted was to offer the £2,000 he had saved so he could be part of Jack's special day. I reminded him that Leo looked up to him and considered his hero, and he had let him down. He had shown Leo that he wasn't important to him the way Jack was important to Leo. I also told him that I would keep supporting Leo on going no contact and I'd be going low contact with him myself. He asked me for a chance to apologize to Leo, but I told him he had already apologies. All he could do now was wait to see if one day my son would accept his apology. Jack seemed hurt, but he told me he would respect our wishes and give us time and space. Leo. As for my son, I apologized for not standing up to him and forcing him to meet with the family every week. I told him that he could decide what he wanted to do with that part of the family going forward. He seemed reluctant to stop going, but I let him know that I would support him no matter what and that I wouldn't be upset. What made me happy was that Leo suggested we could stop going to the family every week and instead we could spend more time together, he and I, doing some of the things he used to do with my brother. Last week we went to a vintage car show and next week we're going to watch Wicked. I'm not a theater guy, but it sounds fun. I also told him I was worried he had stopped doing things he liked and that he shouldn't stop just because he had a falling out with someone he cared about. Basically told him it was okay to still enjoy things by himself or with someone else. He admitted he actually wanted to do those things but stopped just to spite Jack. I decided to give him an early Christmas gift and bought him some games he had been excited about but that he had refunded after the fight with my brother. He even convinced me to play with him some Final Fantasy online game on his PS5 while he plays on PC. I admit I have no idea what I'm doing on that game since the last Final Fantasy game I played was still in 2D, but he seems to enjoy watching me fail. Any advice here is welcome. Finally, we decided to take a trip to his dream destination for my birthday. I was a little bit sad because it's going to be the first time in almost 50 years that I don't celebrate a birthday with my brother, but I've got my son and that's all that matters. So yeah, Leo is happier and less stressed about the family. Speaking of which, I think the family is finally respecting our boundaries, so that's good too. I just hope my brother can work on his marriage. I may hate what they did, but I do want him to be happy. Relevant comments. Has OOP's brother been able to deal with Emil's behaviors? Reply, I don't know. She's my brother's problem, not mine. What about Leo's college goals? Does he still want to follow Jack's footsteps? Reply, we actually talked about this, too, and it's a bit complicated. He admitted this is one of the things he stopped doing out of spite, but he really doesn't feel like following Jack's footsteps. He repeated what he said at the dinner the other night, he doesn't want to be like Jack. I told him we could compromise by leaving it be for the next 2 years so he can reflect on what he wants, and then we will have the conversation again when it's time to choose his A-levels. OOP on Leo's dream destination. Reply, he wants to visit Greece. He's been obsessed with Greek mythology since he was little, so he's always wanted to go there. Update 2, it's been a while, hasn't it? The wedding anniversary is next week and I remembered this post. I just thought I'd do one quick update for those wondering what had happened. TLDR. Life's been boring. Longer update, Leo and me took a step back from the big family for a bit. But we decided to give the holidays a go with everyone. I gotta admit I was nervous. We even had a backup plan in case things got awkward with Jack and Leo. Thankfully, it was all rather uneventful, like all the others. The biggest thing is that my brother and Leo had a proper chat on Christmas Eve. I saw them talking, and Leo went all quiet, which worried me at first. But he said it was a good talk. They're not back to how they were, not by a long shot, but they've been spending a bit of time together since then, hanging out, and sometimes just playing games. It's still a bit weird for all of us, but it's progress, I guess. I know some people were worried about Leo's future, as if my brother's career was the only option, lol. But Leo's a good kid. He's been branching out and trying new things. He said he wants to become a game developer or maybe a writer. I've been reading some of his stuff, and it's pretty good, or I may be biased cause he's my son and all. As for uni, he's been considering a physics degree or becoming a pilot. That's probably my fault. I introduced him to my favorite author and now he's obsessed with time travel and alternate universes. I also, finally, convinced him to try a sport and he's liked it too far. I even got him to watch some games with me and may drag him along to next year's welcome, and I always wanted to visit Mexico, so it's gonna be nice, just the two of us and all that. Jack and I have been making an effort to meet up every fortnight. It's been hard, I won't lie. Our birthday was back in October and it was particularly rough. I know some will be angry at me, but I miss my brother. I read something that said that you can love someone and not like them, and that's kind of where I'm at. Leo will always be my number one, but Jack's my brother, and it hurts to be apart, you know. On the Jack and Mary front, they're heading for a divorce. They had to be married for a year and Jack said he'll file ASAP. Maybe next week or the week after. It's been tough on him. He said it wasn't just the fallout with Leo, but a lot of other things too. I'm sad for him, but life goes on, doesn't it? It's mostly been pretty boring, day-to-day stuff, dealing with work, and a teen, and some health-related stuff. But yeah, thanks to everyone who commented. Top comments. Commenter 1, glad things are working out alright and Leo is alright. I hope the healing for everyone continues. Also unsurprised the divorce. OOP responds to multiple comments about having his son checking coding activities out to see if Leo likes it or not. Reply, thanks for the insight. I've been thinking of enrolling him into some kind of coding bootcamp so he can see if he likes it. We'll see what he decides to do in the coming months. Commenter 2, boring is good. Sorry to hear about your brother's divorce, but ultimately he was responsible for how Mary got to treat everyone in the situation. You will get your brother back, but as you said it will be different. Commenter 3, I'm really glad to hear that Leo has been healing enough to be ready to start talking to Jack again. I think that your patience, support, and understanding had a lot to do with him being able to reach this stage in his healing. You were right to not push him, to let him set his own pace. Commenter 4, I'm glad everything worked out. I've been following since the first post. I have a few questions though. Did you guys like Wicked? Did you see the movie after? Reply, we enjoyed it, yes, but we haven't watched the film, though. Who is OOP's favorite author and what has Leo read so far? Reply, Christopher Priest. He loved The Inverted World and The Gradual, but he's positively obsessed with The Separation. He insists it's both an alternate universe and time travel story of sorts. I'm not sure I see it, but he makes some compelling arguments, lol. I think he's interested in physics for the quantum thing about many worlds. It's fun to watch, not gonna lie. Stories number 13. I gambled with my girlfriend's money and lied about it. My girlfriend and I have been together for almost 2 years. She's responsible with money and I am too. Last week, I was dead broke but had this parlay that I was absolutely convinced would hit. I made up some bullshit about needing $100 for a work expense that would be reimbursed. She didn't hesitate to transfer the money. I feel like such a piece of shit typing this out. Anyway, I placed the bet and against all odds, it actually hit. $5,000 payout on a $100 bet. I was ecstatic but immediately realized I had a problem. How do I explain suddenly having all this cash? Instead of coming clean, I bought her a $1,200 designer handbag she'd been eyeing for months. Told her I'd been saving up for it as a surprise. She was over the moon, crying and everything. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there feeling like the biggest fraud. I've put the rest into savings but I can't shake this guilty feeling. Every time she uses the bag and thanks me for being so thoughtful, I feel worse. The relationship is built on trust and I've completely violated that. Part of me wants to come clean, but I know she'd be devastated to learn I not only gambled but lied about it. What started as a harmless lie has turned into this whole facade. I genuinely love her and hate that I've betrayed her trust like this. I know the right thing is to tell her, but I'm terrified of losing her. I've stopped gambling since this happened, but the damage is already done. Stories number 14. Aita for giving crappy Christmas gifts and ruining my marriage. I, 31F, married my soon-to-be ex-husband, M33, in 2018. My in-laws never liked me and made it clear. STBX insisted that they're just putting up a tough exterior and they'll grow to love me. To show how evil they are, one time I joined them for dinner and brought a cake I'd made, because I was always raised to be a gracious guest. When I stepped into the kitchen and offered the cake to his mother as a thank you for inviting me, she took the plate over to the garbage bin, dumped it in, and handed me the plate back. When I told my husband what she did, he confronted her and all of a sudden the crocodile tears started and she claimed she grabbed the plate but didn't get a good grip. I let go too quickly, and it fell to the floor, so of course it had to be thrown away. My SAL confirmed that was what happened. My STBX owned his own business and they called me a gold digger behind his back. Of course they insisted on a prenup, which I didn't care about because I never thought my marriage would end and it would appease them and may allow them to finally treat me kindly. Nope. His business failed once COVID hit. We went through his savings and my own trying to keep it afloat. I refused to go into debt to keep it going, so he closed it down. In 2022, he was suffering from really bad depression because he lost his business and couldn't find new work. He suggested we move to his hometown, closer to his family, so he had a larger support network. Against my best judgment we did. He wanted to only work part-time while he tried to restart his business, so I became the main breadwinner. And as with most wives, I became the person in charge of buying gifts. Stupid old me thought buying them thoughtful, expensive gifts would finally make them see I wanted to be accepted by them. Gifts to us were a couple's gift, but clearly for my STBX only. Every holiday was spent with them. Monthly dinners with the whole family. After a year, I realized that if I ever tried to talk or join a conversation, everyone would go quiet, so I just stopped talking when I visited. In early December they finalized plans for Christmas. A few days later my STBX said his family decided they didn't want me to join them for Christmas Eve dinner and Christmas lunch because I ruined the family vibe. I replied, fine, we'll do our own thing instead. My STBX sheepishly looked away and said he was still going to go. I was livid and so disappointed in him. That was the moment I knew my marriage was over, so I returned the presents I had bought for his family. In their place, I got one pair of novelty business socks for FIL, a supermarket brand bottle of shampoo for MIL, the nastiest perfume I could find at the dollar store for SIL. The most expensive gift was a large rawhide bone for BIL and his wife's chihuahua, too big for it to get its jaw around, rendering it useless. I saved about $600 to put on a deposit for a new apartment. My husband come home from Christmas lunch telling me I humiliated him and embarrassed him in front of his family. I asked him why would he think I buy nice gifts for people who clearly don't like me and don't want me around. Served divorce papers last week. Remember how he was supposed to be a millionaire by now so we had that prenup? STBX is not eligible for any of my savings, it was required to keep separate accounts, or alimony. He doesn't have money for rent and auto insurance. Not my problem anymore. Some of my friends and family and on my side and proud that I went out in a blaze of glory. Others are telling me I was being way too petty, which isn't really like me. So, AIT, some of OOP's comments. Commenter 1, would say be glad you did not have children with him. Be glad you can escape and be free with no strings. P.S. This relationship should be a learning lesson on the love that you want for yourself and the life you want, not as a loss. Reply, first thing I did after I moved into my new apartment was adopt an older car from the shelter. He was allergic and I couldn't never adopt one since we first started living together. We're just two old hags living our best lives after being rejected. Commenter 2, you're not old, silly. So glad you're enjoying the company of an older cat, car, is interesting but not as cuddly, who appreciates you and will show that far more than STBX ever did. Reply, doh. Just notice the typo, keeping it in because it's actually hilarious. Commenter 3, NTA. He chose his family over you and still expected you to buy all the presents. This was perfectly planned and well deserved for every one of them, including him. Reply, he only worked 12 hours a week at Walmart till he could do non-existent work restarting his business. I make just over 6 figures and I can't believe I didn't realize years ago I was the family ATM. Commenter 4, NTA so thoughtful of them to insist on a prenup. I hope you send them a sincere thank you note after the divorce is finalized, LOL. Reply, my lawyer even laughed that the prenup that was set up for him is going to be what we use for me. It required both spouses to maintain separate bank accounts and each spouse could keep 100% of their savings. No spouse eligible for alimony. Update post. Many thanks to everyone for their support in my last post. I thought I'd send a small update. First, for those who asked how the deposit on my new apartment was only the $600 I saved on the gifts, it certainly wasn't. I had to dip into savings, but that $600 helped. My STBX didn't bother reaching out to me after I left until he was served the divorce papers and my lawyer made it clear we're exercising the prenup. Then it was loving voicemails and texts, I never picked up, from him and his family for a few days trying to convince me to come back, which eventually turned to threatening and cruel voicemails and texts when it was clear I wasn't budging. My lawyer suggested I don't block them so we have evidence of harassment, if needed. Basically, give them the rope to hang themselves with. But then last night I got call after call from my STBX. Stupidly, I picked it up thinking there was some kind of emergency or something. I barely got "hello" out when he said, the rent is a week late. I told him that's strange because I paid my landlord 6 days ago. He paused and sighed dramatically and replied, no, the rent for here. I reminded him I don't live there and he shouldn't expect rent. Cue his parents both texting me that they're going to sue me to pay the remainder of the lease entirely. I'm not worried about having an eviction on my record, since the apartment is in his parents' names. When we first announced we were moving to his hometown, they rented an apartment for us right away so we could move right in. They've been renewing the lease each year. We had to pay his parents and then they write a check to the landlord, who has no idea who STBX and I are, let alone that we live there. Red flag, I know. I'm glad I had a few weeks to prep my leaving since they'd probably use the fact that it's their apartment to kick me out immediately. Divorce is probably going to be a bumpy ride with this man-child and his psycho parents. Any advice from anyone who's been through it is welcome. Sum of comments. Commenter, do you even have a contract at the place your STBX is living? I don't think they have a basis for suing you, lol. What does your lawyer say? Reply, lawyer is confident they have no leg to stand on. I haven't signed any type of lease and utilities are in their name, too, because they were afraid of having too many names connected to the apartment and the landlord finding out. So they are on the hook for everything that doesn't get paid. But, hey, that was their choice and their scheming. FAFO. New update post. Hi, if this isn't the right place to post any updates, please direct me to a subreddit that better fits. Super sorry if I'm annoying members who aren't interested, but a few requested an update. First post, my husband's family uninvited me from Christmas. Husband still left and made me celebrate Christmas alone. I organized shitty gifts as a final bird flip. First update, I moved out and my underemployed STBX and his family still expected me to pay rent on the apartment in my in-laws' names. So the people who commented that my soon-to-be former in-laws were probably charging my STBX and me more than the amount on the lease, you called it. And we wouldn't have found out if they weren't so entitled and determined to hurt me. They got a cousin who happens to be a lawyer to send me a letter demanding I pay the entirety of the remainder of the lease or they will file suit and force me to pay it. Clearly a scare tactic. So my lawyer sent a formal request to their lawyer for a copy of the lease, which I've never seen, and a copy of their written agreement with us as subleases, which doesn't exist. They sent the lease and insisted the sublease agreement was a verbal contract. Not only is subleasing explicitly prohibited, but my mother-in-law and father-in-law had been charging us an extra $200 each month. So we've notified the landlord that I've been living there with my STBX and the leases were living in their own house throughout the duration of the lease, and sent copies of my driver's license, with the address, and over 2 years of bank and credit card statements with the address listed. They were served with a 30-day eviction yesterday, which I know about because MIL left a voicemail about me kicking my STBX out of his home and that she now drives with a baseball bat in her car and she'll be keeping an eye out for me, lol. Obviously, my lawyer's expertise is family law and this was out of her purview, so she referred me to a colleague who focuses on real estate law. We met today to devise a battle plan and I am now suing my MIL and FIL for all the money I can prove I transferred for rent for the entirety of the residency there, since the apartment was technically not a legal apartment to rent since they couldn't sublease, no clean hands to rent to us and then sue me. He's not sure how a judge will buy it and it's way beyond my state civil compensation limit, but he's confident that it will scare them and leave them open to settling for just returning the additional $200 from each payment. Which I think is fair, because I did live there with my STBX so I don't think it's right to get all the rent money back. I'm an adult and adults pay rent. And I don't want them to have the satisfaction of saying I'm using the divorce as a windfall. On the STBX front, there's no news there. We will likely need to go to family court for a separation order since he won't agree to the financial details of the separation agreement my lawyer has drafted. My state requires a 1-year separation period before a divorce can be finalized, so this is going to be a long process. A few people asked why he did what he did and if he's offered any kind of explanation or justification. We haven't really talked since he was served. I don't know if he just fell out of love but I was still financially convenient, or if the mask finally lifted, or if it was being so close to his family and them having opportunities to manipulate him. I don't know and I don't care. I don't need closure, I need them all gone. Looking back, making promises during couples counseling and slowly regressing back is enough closure. Knowing he allowed his family to treat me like crap for so long is closure. That final betrayal at Christmas is closure. My focus isn't on figuring it out, it's making sure I'm happy. Sum of comments. Commenter 1. Keep their calls and text messages as evidence for a protective order. Reply, absolutely. She's going to regret it because she works for the school district and a restraining order won't let her teach. Commenter 2. Don't forget to investigate suing for return of money invested in his business. It was premarital asset, and exempt from prenup. Worth a shot to see if you can recover some all of that wasted savings. Reply, I had never thought of this. I'll bring it up when I meet with my lawyer next. The lease agreement. When we first told his family we were moving back to his hometown, his parents went ahead and signed a lease for us, to make the move easier. Personally, I think it was to make the move happen sooner and have control over us. They were worried about too many names attached to the apartment, so power, internet, etc. is also in their name. Stories number 15. Coworker claims that I groom children following office duck scavenger hunt. Had a meeting with my manager this afternoon and will be raising a formal grievance against the problem coworker. Second update, it's been a few weeks now. Coworker is refusing to come into the office. She has also not spoken to myself or other members of our team since. We are due to start mediation next week apparently. Not sure that will solve. Yesterday I received a job offer for a role that's been ongoing since November. My notice period is 2 months, so only 2 months of this woman left to deal with. Boy do I have a doozy. Last week I had a delivery of 100 little ducks. You know the kind people leave around their friends' houses when they are on holiday. My work is going through a tumultuous time and I thought it might boost morale or at least give a reprieve from the negativity for 5 minutes. So I dotted these ducks around for people to find and it went down a treat. With people even rehiding the ducks for other coworkers the next day. People were laughing and talking about it for a couple of days. Even the directors found a couple, they were a bit bemused but left us to it. One of the directors made a comment that without his glasses he assumed they were sweets that had been left out. He was glad he took a closer look before trying some. My problem colleague overheard this and then made the comment that I was grooming both children and men with the ducks. Office fund me being a child groomer. Reported to HR but I think I'm ready to move on to a different company now. Update. So it has been 3 weeks since my coworker called me a child groomer and my manager called us into a meeting where I called out her poor behavior over the past 2 years. Since then I have not heard or spoken to my coworker. She ignores any work-related message and is refusing to come into the office. She is working from home although I can't see that much work is being done. She has recently asked a department that I have been working closely with if she can join them in their office if she has to come into work. HR have asked us if we would both be willing to attend mediation. I said yes. I am not sure what my coworker's response was but since it was due to start this week and has not, I assume she refused to it. I was going to raise a grievance over this but I was invited to a job interview at a company I had previously applied for and was offered the job contract signed and notice handed in. Stories number 16. Aita for telling my BL to leave after he found out my mum cuts vegetables for me. I, 30M, was born with a bone missing in my arm, as a result I only have 1 digit. If that wasn't enough, it was in a fixed position with my digit up by my shoulder and the ligament and tendons didn't really develop so I can't straighten my arm. My parents were great at making sure I would be independent and able to live by myself. Some things I physically can't do, like tie shoelaces. For the most part one can cut anything by myself, but I struggle with doing fine dices. Every other month or so, my mum will finally cut some veggies for me, usually onion, celery and carrots, so that I can freeze them. I asked her to do this when I lived on my own for the first time because I was fed up of sending onions flying all over my kitchen if I used a knife or it turning to mush if I used the food processor. When my girlfriend, 28F, started dating, she told me that she couldn't cook but also didn't have an interest in learning to cook. I said this was fine because I like to cook, so when she moved in I became the de facto cook. She has never expressed a problem with my mum cutting vegetables for me, she actually preferred it as she has said she couldn't cut them finely for me. Her brother, 35M, is currently staying with us and has been for the last 4 weeks since his ex threw him out because of how lazy he is. He doesn't have a job, I don't think he has for the 3 years I've been with GF, nor is he looking for one, he also doesn't help around the house. We were his last resort because no one else would take him in, not even their parents. My mum came over yesterday with the freezer bags of diced veggies for me. Bil was annoyed when he saw my mum with the veggies because that morning GF and I had spoken to him about not being so lazy and get a job because he's an adult and needs to stop relying on people like a child, GF's words not mine. He was annoyed because he saw me as being a hypocrite because I was getting my mum to cut things for me like a child. After my mum left he accused her of mollycoddling me and treating me like I'm incompetent. For me this was a crossed line because this is something I physically can't do and my mum is just being helpful. I told Bil that I wanted him to leave and that he was no longer welcome in my home. GF moved in with me to my house. GF was upset that I asked her brother to leave as I made a decision without her input and left with him. Since Bil and GF left, I have texts off him and their family accusing me of being a mummy's boy, telling me I need to cut the apron strings and cut my own vegetables like an adult. GF hasn't answered my texts. Aita for telling my Bil to leave. Edit, I do use frozen veggies, they are great for a lot of applications, but definitely not for fresh eating. I get some of the harder veggies like butternut squash already cut up and frozen. Though frozen onions I seem to only be able to get sliced. My local supermarket does have prepared veg in the fruit and veg department, but it honestly doesn't look great. The onion in particular is always slimy looking. I do actually need to get a new veg chopper like the slap chop or the box ones that people have suggested. My niece, 3, broke my last one trying to help me cook. My sister offered to replace it but I told her it was an accident and she didn't need to do that. I've seen links to a couple that look better than the one I had where I might be able to cut as finely as I want, so I'm gonna order one and give it a try. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. You should seriously reconsider your future with this woman. Not only is she too lazy to cook, but she wants you to coddle her and her brother yet allows her family to mock you for your disability. This is disgusting, OP. This is not something an adult, let alone a partner does. Her family really can't say much about being spoilt when their daughter can't even cook for herself and their son is a freeloading bum who can't look after himself. Info, what chores did she do, if any? Does she work? Did she contribute to the house equally? I'm asking as the comment about her letting you cook for her irks me. Reply, she does work, she's got a part-time receptionist job. She does do some chores, but I've got to ask her if she'll do it. If she's washing clothes, she'll only wash hers, never mine. She does contribute towards the bills but it's not a 50-50 split because of the difference in our incomes. She doesn't pay towards the house or house upkeep. This was on the recommendation of my dad in case we split up because then she would be able to go after my house as she paid towards it. Commenter 2. She does do some chores, but I've got to ask her if she'll do it. If she's washing clothes, she'll only wash hers, never mine. I'm sorry, what? You're talking about a fully grown woman, not a teenager. Dude, run. Your dad saw this woman for what she was ages ago. Commenter 3. But why did you let BL move in if you knew he was thrown out because he's lazy? BL jobless for years, doesn't actively look for one, doesn't help around the house. Didn't those things sound your alarms? Commenter 4. She fed me a lot of false promises, that he was going to try and that he would help around the house. That it would only be for a couple nights. That family should help family. I stupidly relented thinking that maybe he's changed. Commenter 5. And I find it a big red flag that your GF doesn't know how to cook and doesn't want to learn either. The least she could do is chop the veggies for you so that way your mom doesn't need to take the time to do it and then drive them over to you. However, your mom sounds awesome for helping you like that. Reply, see, this didn't bother me at the time. I like to cook, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't get a bit grating at times doing all the cooking. My sister tells people that she doesn't cook or want to learn to cook, but she can and does cook, so at first I thought she meant it like my sister did. She tells people this so that she won't be asked to cook for our family Christmas meal, but she does still host Christmas when it's her turn, but she takes us out or we order takeaway. Top comments. Commenter 1. GF and her lazy freeloading brother need to stay gone. Good riddance. Don't let them back in, either of them, for any reason. These are not your people. NTA unless you let these freeloaders back in your home. Commenter 2. She's lazy too, he does all the cooking and she can't even dice vegetables for him. And now she's letting other people disrespect him for not dicing vegetables even though she, a presumably able-bodied person with all her fingers, can't do it either. It's bewildering. How can someone have so little shame? Commenter 3. Yeah, that's the bit that got me. She doesn't want to cook, fine. Then she can prep, shop or clean. I wonder what she does. Commenter 4. Nothing. Same as her mooch brother it seems. Commenter 5. It shouldn't take a rocket scientist to understand why you physically can't cut veggies yourself. He's TAH, but your girlfriend defending him isn't much better unfortunately. Commenter 6. It's some real ableist BS. Commenter 7. NTA. Do they tell blind people to stop with that silly braille and read like an adult? Commenter 8. They probably do. Then they ask said blind people for some money. Update. So, GF, well, ex-GF, came around this afternoon to collect her belongings. It was very anticlimactic, but I'm not upset that she's gone because she's shown me her true colors. Though she had blamed me for it all and not apologized for her or her brother's actions. She had written a post on her FB on Saturday night basically bad-mouthing me, calling me all sorts of names and said that I was a mummy's boy and refused to cut the apron strings. I didn't see it, I don't have FB, but my sister, 28F, did, and she screenshot it and sent it to me. The comment section was a dumpster fire because her friends were saying things like, of course he needs help, he has one arm, and telling her that she should be helping me. She has since deleted the post. After my sister saw the post, she called our uncle to let him know what had happened and suggested that he came around and changed my locks for me because she doesn't trust XGF and wanted to make sure I was safe. As XGF left, my uncle arrived to change the locks, which angered her. She got upset and asked if we didn't trust her. I hesitated and my uncle smirked and said no. After XGF left, my uncle teased me about it taking so long to realize she wasn't a nice person. None of them liked her but didn't say anything because they could see I was happy. Apparently she and my sister loathed each other as my sister was angry about the way she was treating me. I was just too enamored to see it. My sister has also sent me the number of one of her friends, Jane, 29F, and told me that Jane is waiting for me to text her for a date when I'm ready and that this is the last time she's giving me the number of a friend. I've known Jane for years through my sister, she's lovely and I do like her. We get on incredibly well, but Jane was in a long-term relationship before I got with my ex. Jane works as a chef in a local hotel, and has previously offered to help me with chopping because she's a good egg. So there's that. TDLR, broke up with GF, locks have changed and I've got the number of a woman who is a decent human being. Stories number 17. Aita for refusing to give my brother the house our grandparents left to me and telling him maybe he should have visited them once in a while. My grandparents passed away a few years ago and left their house to me. It was not some random decision. I was basically their third child. I lived with them during college, helped them with everything in their later years, and we were incredibly close. My brother, on the other hand, barely visited. I think he saw them twice in the last 5 years of their lives. They noticed and they were not happy about it. Now my brother and his wife are struggling financially. They have 2 kids, rent a tiny apartment, and suddenly he is very interested in our grandparents' house. He sat me down and said that since I do not really need the house, I should give it to him so his family can have a home. I told him no. He got mad and said I was being selfish because I do not have kids and I would not understand. Then he got our mom involved. She called me and gave me the whole "family comes first" speech and said I should at least sell it to him for a family discount. I told them both no. If I ever sell, it will be for market price. My brother lost it and said our grandparents would have wanted the house to go to the person who needs it most. That is when I snapped and told him maybe they would have left him something if he had bothered to visit them once in a while. Now he is furious. My mom is saying I was cruel, and the rest of the family is split. Half think I am right and the other half think I should suck it up and help my brother. I feel like he is the one prioritizing his problems over my boundaries, but now everyone is making me second-guess myself. Stories number 18. Aita for leaving my wife because of her brother. My wife, F37, and I, M31, have been married for almost 4 years. I have a son from a previous relationship. She and I are very cordial and we co-parent. My wife, she's great and I love her, and has no issues with my ex-wife, but she doesn't talk to me about a certain family member, her brother. Now, I was never one to pry, so I accepted down the line that maybe he was just someone she didn't talk to or gave a good enough relationship was. Whatever the case, I always let it go. Well, around a month ago I finally met the man at a function with some family members on both our ends, mine and my wife's, and initially everything was fine until one of my SL jokingly said, "Yeah, you done learned your lesson about them kids, haven't you?" To my brother-in-law. Of course I'm confused, so I asked my wife, who looked a bit uncomfortable, what she meant. She didn't say anything about it until we got home. My son wasn't around, he was with his mother. She then told me that my BL had been at a camp for people who touch little kids, supposedly a conversion camp for pedophiles. And like any sane person would, I was disgusted and I was asking why the hell she didn't tell me. She said that it was around 10 years ago and he hadn't did it since, saying he prayed all the time and of course long before she met me. Yes, she was defending the pedophile brother. He was supposedly safe around the neighborhood kids where the camp was. Mind you, she herself said she hadn't seen him, so either she lied again or she'd been in knowing contact. Either way it's repulsive. We had an entire argument about this and I told her that for the foreseeable future my son will be staying solely with his mother and that she needed to move out. She called her mother over with her sisters and they're all jumping down my ass about kicking her to the curb after she told me the truth, claiming it was a family secret, meaning I was family, but I don't want to be part of a family that thinks like that or had secrets like that. I understand that it was 10 years ago but it still happened and is still horrendous. Eventually after this debacle I filed for divorce. Aita for breaking off my happy marriage because of my BL. Yes, before you ask, we're black. Stories number 19. Aita for ruining my own gender reveal party. I'm pregnant with a baby boy due in November. My fiancé and I didn't care much about the sex of our child, so we didn't make too much noise about it once we found out. The only people we'd informed were our parents, their partners and our siblings. Prior to this, my father's girlfriend of 3 years had been asking me about my plans for a gender reveal party. I've always been clear about not wanting one. When I announced my son's gender to them, she expressed disappointment that I hadn't changed my mind about a party. I don't like gender reveals. Never have, never will. I prefer baby showers, which I think feel more about the actual child. I never tried to hide that opinion, either. Days later, my father's girlfriend invited me over for tea at their apartment. My dad was out of town. When I got there, about a dozen people popped out of hiding to surprise me. There were pink and blue decorations everywhere, which made what was going on pretty clear. As I stood there in shock, my father's girlfriend excitedly told me they were throwing me a surprise gender reveal party. Since I'd already told her, she had taken it upon herself to order a cake with colorful frosting, decorate the apartment and invite a bunch of people over. The guests included her mother, whom I don't get along with, some of her friends, my MIL, not my mom, and 4 of my friends. As I later found out, my MIL and friends had been told I'd changed my mind about gender reveals. I had not. Still in the doorway, I looked over at everyone and said, "It's a boy. You guys can go home now." I left without looking back. Hours later, my father called me furious that I'd ruined the party. He said his girlfriend had put a lot of effort, money and love into planning it, and I should have shown respect and gratitude for it. Apparently, she hadn't stopped crying since I left. It's been almost a week, and they're both still upset. Even after I explained I never wanted that party in the first place, they're insisting I could have sucked it up for an hour, or at least cut the cake. Aita. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, NTA. This smacks of her trying to prove that she cares about you more than your mom, especially seeing as how either your mom wasn't invited or she turned down the invitation to respect your wishes. She doesn't seem to get that the way to prove she cares about you at all is to actually listen to what you want and don't want. Reply. I asked my mom, she confirmed she wasn't invited. According to my father's girlfriend, she didn't have her number. That's probably true, but I have no idea how she could have gotten my MILs. To another commenter, I think the real reason is that she knew my mom wouldn't back her up. Had my mother been invited, she would have told me everything. She knows I wouldn't want a gender reveal. Commenter, there was cake. You could have deliberately misunderstood and said, "Thank you for the baby shower for my baby boy," and then stayed for cake. Then you could have also, in between bites of cake, acted all confused to the guests and said, "I'm so glad she respected my wishes on not having a gender reveal party and threw me a shower like I preferred," and then went and got another slice of cake. SMH, missed opportunity to have your cake and eat it too. Reply, wouldn't have worked. The moment they all yelled, "Surprise," she said it was a gender reveal. The decorations also made it obvious. My fiancé did get me cake after all this, so I didn't really miss out on that. Commenter, NTA. Is your dad's GF infertile? Does she have kids? Reply, she doesn't have kids, but I have no idea whether she's infertile. Commenter, I mean, I guess I don't blame you, but it sucks for the other people who just showed up for a party that they thought you wanted and got ditched. Your mother-in-law and friends didn't do anything wrong and they got punished too. Reply, I talked to them afterwards to clear things up. They were all confused and upset on my behalf. I made it clear I understood they had been lied to and it hadn't been my intention to put them in that position. We all apologized to each other. Commenter, your actions were a reflection of how you feel about the GF, not at all about spending time with people who love and respect you and are looking forward to your little one's arrival. Reply, if she wants a get-together, she can throw a party. She does not need to make that about my child's sex, especially after I told her not to. My friends and MIL did indeed think they'd come for me, and I spoke to them afterwards. But I will not buy that her mother and friends were there because they cared about me. You're not the only one assuming I don't like my father's girlfriend. That is not true. But when I tell someone I don't want something, multiple times, and they go ahead and do it anyway, I don't have to stick around. And no, this was not about the hormones. Update post. Thank you for all your replies. Especially those who called me the for having a gender reveal. I'm assuming you didn't read my post, but you still cracked me up. All jokes aside, I've been expected to be a pushover for most of my life, older daughter of divorced parents, so it was good to know I was right to stand my ground on this issue. After reading your comments, I've concluded that the only thing I did wrong was leaving without talking to my friends and MIL. They were lied to and put in an awkward position after I left. I did talk to them the next day and apologized, but I wish I'd told them what was going on. A few days ago, my fiancé and I invited my father and his girlfriend over. I told them I was extremely upset with them both, but I wanted to sort this out peacefully. We still ended up fighting. My father agreed with some points I made, but kept insisting that I was ungrateful and owed his girlfriend an apology. She was quiet at first, but started crying about 20 minutes into the fight. My father's girlfriend said she threw the party because she cared about me, and that she'd want one if she was pregnant. She started talking about all the gender reveal videos she'd watched on TikTok, and how happy the parents look in them. She told me she genuinely thought I'd love it, and couldn't understand why I'd been so rude to her. To my surprise, my fiancé was the first to snap at that. He's usually the calm one. He told her to stop calling it my party, since she clearly threw it for herself. I had expressed countless times that I didn't want a gender reveal, and I was well within my rights to leave when she tried to ambush me with one. The fight didn't go on for much longer after that. Near its end, my father asked me why I hadn't at least played along for a while. I told him I went there expecting to spend an hour with someone I've been meaning to get to know better, not to spend my entire afternoon entertaining a dozen people, more than half of whom I either didn't know or didn't like, who got together to talk about my child's privates. I didn't mean to upset anyone, but I had to get out. My father didn't argue with that. There were two main pieces of advice from your comments that I decided to follow. The first was to tell my father's girlfriend she needed to apologize to my friends and MIL for lying to them. She agreed, and they later confirmed she did. Secondly, neither of them will be allowed to meet my son at the hospital when he's born. My father had been looking forward to this, so it wasn't an easy decision, but I made it clear it was final. My father called me the next day to apologize for everything, and I forgave him. I don't expect an apology from his girlfriend, but I'm done feeding that fire. My life is stressful enough as it is. My son will be here in November. He already has a name, and we've just started working on his nursery. I truly can't wait to meet him. Also sorry for including "for" twice in my first post's title. Editor's note: fixed that here. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, gender reveals are still a cringe. And always will be. Reply: there are dozens of reasons I dislike gender reveals, but I don't think that's one of them. I do agree with it, though. But I like plenty of cringe stuff, so that wouldn't be enough for me to dislike something. Commenter: does your dad and his GF have a large age gap? She just revealed that she wants kids. Reply: they're 16 years apart, I think. Commenter: for the sake of your mental health, do not tell anyone the names you have chosen. Reply: oh, we're not saying anything until birth. The only people who know besides us are my best friend, who will be my son's godmother, and her husband. New update post. Hey everyone. It's been a while. Hope it's okay for me to update here. I remember promising myself I'd make a final post as soon as the dust had settled, and I'm pretty sure the time has come. First of all, I'm a mom. My son was born in November, and he turned 3 months old a little over a week ago. He's beautiful and perfect, and I still can't believe he's here. Secondly, I have some updates on my father and his girlfriend. Most importantly, they broke up last month. Turns out they were cheating on each other. I don't know much about this that isn't gossip I can't confirm, but I did have some minor problems with her after my last post. About a week after the conversation I mentioned in my previous update, she became fixated on trying to find out my son's name. According to her, there was a personalized gift she wanted to get me that would need it. She spent 3 weeks asking around about it before giving up. I didn't invite my father's girlfriend to my baby shower. Almost definitely a dick move, but I didn't want her there. She was still on her name crusade at the time, and it was becoming exhausting to deal with. My mother was the one who threw it, so it didn't make sense for her to be there anyway. My fiancé and I had dinner with her and my father instead, which did end up being nice. She gave us diapers instead of the personalized gift, and it was quite honestly the best thing she could have gotten me. Nothing happened when I went into labor, at least not on that end. I introduced my son to my father through video chat. He kept his part of the deal and didn't visit us, but I later found out his girlfriend did try to convince him to. They came over to meet the baby a bit over a week later. Her mother was visiting them at the time, and I allowed her to join us despite the fact I never got along with her. Awful decision. She complained the whole visit. Also, according to her, I had it easy because of my C-section, so she felt the need to tell me her whole birth story. Joke's on her, my kid can kill Macbeth. All jokes aside, my father was particularly upset about this. He told me he had a huge argument with his girlfriend afterwards because her mother ruined his first time meeting his first grandchild. The holidays went fine. The breakup happened early in January. Again, I don't know much about it. A few days after I found out, my father's ex-girlfriend texted me. She apologized for whatever stress she had put me through during my pregnancy. We wished each other well. I'm sure both she and my father will start dating their affair partners now. If I learned anything these last few months, it's that my family is a fucking mess. Moving forward, I'll do my best to protect my child from this. I still have over a year until my wedding, so we'll enjoy our time away from the spotlight while it lasts. Stories number 20. Aita for telling my husband that I can't trust him with my children. I, 32F, was cooking dinner and feeding the baby when my husband, 33M, came home with the toddler after picking him up from childcare and noticed he needed a nappy change. He is a decent, modern-day dad who happily changes nappies, so he went to do it as usual. I was finishing loading the dishwasher while still boiling water on the stove and watching the baby in his high chair when my husband called out because the toddler is crying due to severe nappy rash. I was hoping he could deal with it, but he seemed to panic and just said he would stop. I went in and saw him closing a fresh nappy without having cleaned the toddler. I took over. Sure enough, the nappy rash was bad, which is all the more reason to clean it properly, and you can lather on the cream for healing. Once done, I went back to cooking the dinner while my husband sat on the couch with the toddler. I said I wasn't happy that he didn't handle that situation because it worries me if I am ever not here. What if I die? What if I went out for a night? How can I trust him to look after the kids if he can't even deal with such a basic task? He then started saying, yeah, well, if I was a normal husband I wouldn't even be home from work yet and you would have had to do it anyway, then said something about it being a woman's job. Whilst I was offended by his comments, I said it was irrelevant because we weren't talking about gender roles, we were talking about whether he is capable of caring for the children if I'm not around. He brushed it off completely as not a big deal. I said that I found it horrible that he can't see that this is an issue or admit he was wrong. He then said, what I find horrible is that not 5 minutes after coming home I get yelled at and abused when all I was trying to do was help. Is he right? Am I the asshole for thinking he should have been able to handle the situation? Or should I have been more supportive and helped without commenting? Stories number 21. Wibta if I don't share the inheritance that I received from a friend with her daughter. I, F32, recently came into an inheritance when my neighbor and close friend, Valerie, F68, died. I met Valerie when I moved into my condo in 2018 and she became my next-door neighbor. Our places are on the top floor and have almost connecting balconies. We used to spend every Saturday morning outside taking care of our plant babies and chatting. I had learned that Valerie had been a widow since she was 55. I got the impression that she had married young and never had a true chance to learn who she was until after he had died. I had always thought that Valerie was alone in the world. Turns out that Valerie had had one child, a daughter, Sam, F44. However, they had been estranged since the early 2000s. The story that Valerie told me was that Sam had come out as gay when she was just out of high school. That did not sit well with Gary. He told Sam that she was no longer his daughter and kicked her out, telling her to never contact them or come home again. The whole situation broke Valerie's heart and it was her biggest regret in life. She told me that she had always wished she had tried to fight for Sam, but in the moment she was so shocked that she watched the whole thing happen without saying a word. When I had first heard the story about Valerie told me that she hadn't because she didn't know how to even try. So I did some internet sleuthing and found Sam on Facebook. It turns out that Sam had managed to build a good life for herself. I helped Valerie draft a heartfelt message to Sam. Valerie apologized for everything and told Sam how much her perspectives had changed over the years. Valerie also asked if they could try and build a new relationship. We sent the message and saw that Sam had seen and maybe read the message, but Sam never responded. About a month ago, I got home from work to find Valerie passed away on her balcony. She had suffered an embolism. I sent the link to her obituary and memorial page to Sam. I didn't see Sam at the funeral. There was a lawyer handling all of Valerie's affairs. I thought that I would simply grieve the loss of my friend and eventually would have a new neighbor. I never expected me to be the only person who Valerie left in her will. Let alone to have been left everything. A few days ago Sam messaged me. She was upset and demanded that I give her Valerie's things, claiming that I took advantage of an old widow. I was upset when I first read Sam's message and thought, who does she think she is? She hasn't spoken to Valerie in literal decades and never responded when Valerie tried to reach out. Now Valerie is her mother and that entitles her to Valerie's stuff. Now I wonder if I should do something for Sam. I go back and forth if Valerie would want me to. Valerie knew where Sam was, so she could have included Sam somehow. The lawyer I talked to said that the inheritance is completely mine and that Sam has no claim, but should I give Sam something? Stories number 22. Aita for shutting off my Wi-Fi at night. So let's begin from the beginning. I moved into my new apartment in July of last year and no one lived below me for a couple of months. After a couple months a guy moved in. The first thing I have experienced from him was blasting his music so loudly that it sounded like it was coming from my apartment as well as vibrating my floors and walls. I have never met him before this and after that I asked him to just try to keep quiet after 11 p.m. that is around the time I go to bed. Very frequently he does not shut it off after 11 and I get woken up at 3 a.m. to it. There was even a time where I had to miss 4 hours of my scheduled hours at work because he played it until 4 in the morning and I couldn't sleep and had to get up at 5:30 for work to work an 12-hour shift. I have had minimal contact with him for the occasional neighbor stuff like, can you grab my package off the porch so it doesn't get stolen, etc. Well, a couple days ago he asked me to use my Wi-Fi for a couple of days until he can pay his own Wi-Fi. I allow him to use it for free of charge because I know we are all struggling in this economy. However, I have this deep fear of a fire happening at my house, so I unplug everything at night that is not being used. Wi-Fi being one of them, as I do not need it when I am sleeping. I woke up this morning to messages from the neighbor that are so disrespectful about the Wi-Fi not being on. Ida. Top comments. Commenter 1, NTA, but you are a little dumb. You had a perfect bargaining chip and you threw it away. You can use my Wi-Fi if you stop being noisy between the hours of 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. It is weird that you unplug your Wi-Fi at night, but ultimately you can do whatever you please with it because it's yours. I have a hard time believing that you're actually questioning this. Like, what am I missing? The guy can pound sand, beggars can't be choosers. Reply, I mean, you aren't wrong, I did have the perfect bargaining chip. I mean, I guess it is weird, but I grew up in a household where we unplugged everything not being used so it was less of a chance of a fire. I grew up in firefighting home where their worst fear was a fire starting at our home, so I guess I just got used to it and have been doing it into adulthood. I mean, I'm technically not questioning it per se. I would like to say I'm not the asshole, but I could be biased with my thinking as it about me, so I wanted to get outside opinions. Commenter 2, NTA, but you need therapy if you are this easy to walk over. Reply, currently in therapy and working through my people-pleasing tendencies. Commenter 3, technically, NTA, in practice, YTA to yourself. The guy treats you like a doormat, and when he comes to you, you lay even flatter for him to brush his shoes on you another time. Seriously, change the Wi-Fi password, reply that his messages revoked his access permanently, and start calling noise control, or the landlord, or the cops, every time he blasts music past 10 p.m. You're an adult, act like it. Update, thank you all for your replies. I have decided to change my Wi-Fi password and not allow him to use it. A little more background though on a couple of things though. So the apartment I live in is more of a duplex, so there is only me upstairs and the downstairs neighbor who live here. As for the noise complaint, I have called the police and the only thing that happens is he will turn the music off when they come, but the next day it is back to being on. I have learned there is some battles worth fighting and this one isn't worth my battle, as it is never going to change no matter who I go to about it. As for the whole letting him use the Wi-Fi thing, is that I don't want to cause issues while I'm living here and I want to keep the peace as to not make things worse than they are. However, at this point I have done everything to keep the peace and none of it does not seem to be working, so I might as well just be an a-hole. Update 2, the Wi-Fi password has been changed and Wi-Fi name has been changed. I don't think he appreciated that because he blew my phone up while I was in class, then just texted me bet when I did not answer. I'm pretty sure he has his own Wi-Fi now as his music is once again blaring. I'm also pretty sure he is planning something because I was just outside with my dog and girlfriend and he was recording us through the window on his phone. I'm not really sure where to go from here as I cannot move just yet, so I think I am going to talk to some people to see what I can do from this point forward. Update 3, I contacted the company that deals with my rental and let them know everything that has been happening. They said that only thing they can do is give him a warning and from there they cannot do anything, and the police had to be called every time. Stories number 23, Aita for hooking up with my ex a year after our son passed away. I, 27M, lost my son, M4, a year ago. His mom, 26F, and I broke up when he was 2, but we co-parented as best we could. Losing him wrecked both of us. At first, we tried to be there for each other, visiting his grave, checking in, but over time, we drifted. It hurt too much to be around each other. A few weeks ago, she came over to my apartment to pick up some of our son's things that I still had. We hadn't seen each other in months. At first, it was just small talk, but when she saw his favorite stuffed animal on a shelf, she completely broke down. She was sobbing, saying how she felt like she was forgetting his voice, how she didn't know how to keep going. I didn't know what to say, so I just held her. One thing led to another, and we ended up sleeping together. It wasn't planned. It wasn't about getting back together, to be honest. I don't know what it was. It's happened a couple more times. We don't talk about what it means, and I don't even know if we should. Some of my friends think it's a mistake, that we're making things harder for ourselves. Maybe they're right, but for the first time in a long time, I don't feel completely alone. Aita for hooking up with my ex after everything we've been through. Stories number 24. Aita for asking my GF if she can take a shower. My GF really only showers once a week, twice if I'm lucky. Typically we go to the gym together, and I've often asked her why she doesn't shower, and she always comes with things like, oh, women don't really sweat much, and I sweat very little even for women's standards. And I don't buy it, because I can smell. I used to just suck it up, because I know she's extremely sensitive. Kinda NSFW here, but this even affected our sex life. I used to love going down on her, but after not showering after workouts, long work days, etc., I've lost interest. Fast forward a bit. She now starts using the sauna at the gym. Maybe on average 2 times a week. She still refuses to shower. I've said, there's just no way you don't sweat in the sauna, just me sitting 5 minutes in there gets me soaked. She says she doesn't sweat much there either. And she sits there for 20 minutes. Things are now worse. I can smell her, very badly. Almost to the point where I try not to breathe in too close to her because it's not good. I've tried so long to give hints to get her to shower more, like, hey, do you want to take a shower together? But she can't take the hint, and says, why would we do that, there's only room for one under the water anyway. One evening, she wanted to lie down on the floor, and stare at a world map she has. She invited me to lie down next to her, and just talk about where we want to go, etc. I lasted for about 1 minute, before I had to make up some dumb excuse as to why I had to get up. She then gets upset and says something along the lines of, why are you leaving? You never do stuff with me. The truth is just I can't be close to her for long. I'm not even sure if I started to resent her, because it was only this one thing that was bugging me in the relationship. But maybe I did, and that's my fault for being bad at communicating to her. Anyway, I couldn't hold it any longer. I tried one last time to ask if she wanted to take a shower with me, to show I did want to do stuff with her, but she declined. Then I said, I know you say you don't sweat, but I can smell. I don't like the smell of sweat, etc., and it being a popular gym we go to, I would just appreciate if you showered a bit more. She freaked out. WW3 started. She accused me of things and asked if I found her disgusting, etc. It almost felt like she wanted me to think she's disgusting for some messed up reason. Like this was an easy way to create distance between us, have less sex, and all that. I'm not sure, maybe I'm overthinking it. It's just to me, it feels awfully obvious to shower if not daily, at least every other day. She said she doesn't want to shower her hair often, but still, you can shower your body. Our relationship is borderline over because I hurt her, so AITA. What could I have done differently? Irrelevant, but, is it normal that women shower less than men? I was always under the assumption it was the opposite. Stories number 25. Aita for refusing to take care of my niece after she called me a slur. I, 29M, and my wife, 30F, have 2 kids, 5M, 3M. My wife works a full-time office job, while I work from home with extremely flexible hours. Basically, as long as I meet my deadlines, no one really cares how many hours it took or what time of day I work outside of some Zoom meetings. My sister, 26F, let's call her Barb, and her husband, 30M, let's call him Nick, live nearby and work full-time jobs. They have a daughter, 5F, let's call her Tracy. Because of my comfortable work schedule, when our kids started going to daycare, we basically decided that I'll be dropping off and picking up my niece from daycare alongside my own kids. I didn't really mind, and I thought it was great for my kids to spend time with their cousin. I get along with Tracy as well, and always thought I was her cool uncle. She's a sweet kid and usually well behaved. So anyway, most days I bring her and my kids back to our house, I make them snacks or dinner, and in the afternoon evening my sister comes to pick them up. A few days ago the 5-year-old kids were watching Bluey on the TV as I was preparing snacks with my 3-year-old, and I suddenly heard yelling. I rushed over to see what's up, and my son was yelling at her that, my dad's not a girl, while my niece yells back, he is. He's a FT. That's like a girl. The word is different in my language, but the meaning holds, as is the distinction between using it versus simply addressing a gay person. I'm kind of in shock at first, but I turned off the TV, and I sat her down and began explaining that this is a very bad word and we shouldn't be calling people that, and that regardless, I'm not a girl. And because this is a bad word she should apologize to me because we don't act mean to each other in this family, and if I hear this again I'm going to talk to her parents and she's going to get in trouble. She said she won't get in trouble because that's what her dad called me, and he's not in trouble. I was stunned. I told her that regardless of what her dad said, it's a very bad word and she's not to use it with me or in my presence, and that she should apologize regardless because it hurt my feelings, which she did, because she's a really good kid. We talked some more and I prodded her about other things her parents said, and from what I gather, getting info out of a 5-year-old being obviously a difficult and unreliable process. Nick, my BL, told my sister in Tracy's presence that men shouldn't be sitting at home all day and doing childcare, that cooking is a woman's duty, as is cleaning and really most of the things I do around my house. And that I'm a girl, I interpret this as not really a man, because I do housework and my wife earns more money than me. I explained to her the best I could that men and women could work from an office or from home, and that my wife or Barb working long hours from the office doesn't make them men, and vice versa, but I didn't dwell on it with her since it's not really her fault. I didn't immediately bring it up with my sister because I figured it would be a difficult conversation and I didn't want to have it in front of the kids, and I wanted to talk it out with my wife first as well. I did talk to my wife that evening and she seemed really upset as well. I told her that I think I should demand an apology from Nick and my sister, and she agreed. I called my sister and told her what happened, and she said that it's just a word and I'm blowing it out of proportion, and obviously Nick doesn't dislike me. I said I don't care whether he does or doesn't dislike me, he is talking shit about me behind my back to my niece and to her, and she is apparently very chill about this, rather than standing up for me. She said that was how Nick was, and I should stop being a drama queen. I told her to fuck off and if that was how she felt she could pick up her own child from daycare, and hung up. I know it was really short notice and rude, but I really felt like I was being disrespected by people I did so much for over the years, and were my family. My wife said she understood, and that I shouldn't back down until I at least get a proper apology. The next 2 days were a weekend and there was no daycare. I assumed there would be calls or texts from Barb, but there was nothing. In fact, the suspicious lack of any messages or calls made me think she didn't take my words seriously, and this actually got me even more angry. The calls did come when it was time to pick up Tracy for daycare and I, obviously, didn't come. I dropped my own kids off, and didn't even answer for a while. I know it was petty but I was stewing for 2 days and figured letting Barb stew for a few hours seemed really appropriate and felt really good. Around noon when she called again I did pick up. I was going to smugly tell her that I was ready for my apology, and we would put it behind us, but I didn't get to. Instead, she went off on me, about how I was irresponsible and I flaked, and she was so late for work because of me, to which I just said, I told you I wasn't going to pick her up. You had 2 days to make arrangements. And she kept yelling at me, so I hung up again. She kept calling and sending me texts about picking Tracy up from daycare, to which I said I will not be, then stopped replying. When I came to pick my kids up, Tracy was expecting me to take her as well, and I didn't, which was very rough on me and her both. Like, I know it's not her fault and she's 5, and she suddenly doesn't get to go over to our place and play and have snacks, but at the same time, I didn't want to just let this thing go. I felt like I deserved an apology, and still do, so I explained that me and her mom were fighting, but I'll pick her up again when we work it out. She obviously didn't take it well, because she's 5, but I apologized, took my kids and left. Well, a bit later I got a call from my mom. Barb roped her into picking up Tracy, but my mom is disabled, so she was having a really hard time with Tracy, and asked me why I was being mean to Barb. I told her everything, expecting her to take my side, but instead she also pulled a, you know how Nick is, to which I replied that the more I realize how Nick is the less I like it, and if he thinks all this shit in general and about me specifically, I sure as fuck ain't going to be doing free labor for him. She said I was blowing this all out of proportion, and I told her I wasn't the one doing it, because all I asked for was a fucking apology, and everyone else seemed to prefer all of this shit to just giving it to me, to which she said I should just be the bigger man and not let it get to me, to which I said I was done and to have fun with Tracy. That evening I got a call from Nick himself, which I was hesitant about, but chose to answer on the off chance that I was actually about to get that apology. Nope. Apparently my behavior is causing Barb great distress and we're family, and how can I do this to my own sister? I told him that since we're family, how can he talk shit about me to his kid, which I take care of daily, and he said he was only joking, and it was all in good fun. I told him it was neither good nor fun for me, and I want my apology. He blew up on me, telling me I was a FT and couldn't take a joke, and called me a hysterical little girl. I told him to fuck off and that I was done with him and hung up. This led to a bunch of calls from Barb and my mom which I didn't answer. Barb texted me that it wasn't fair for Tracy to pay the price for me being petty, and I told her that it wasn't fair for Tracy to pay the price of her parents being ungrateful pieces of shit. To which she just yelled at me a bunch about how she was going to lose her job and I was being cruel to her and to mom. I told her I was done and unless her next message was an apology I will be blocking her number, and it wasn't, so now I blocked her. Past few days my mom's been picking up Tracy and it's been really rough seeing her in daycare and explaining that grandma's going to pick her up, which she hates, and tells me she isn't having fun with grandma and wants to come over to our place, and it's breaking my heart. But at the same time, I never got a single apology from anyone but the 5 years old, and I feel like letting this go would just be telling my family that it's okay to ignore my boundaries. But at the same time I do love my niece and I don't want to traumatize her or have her resent me. She is a good kid and none of it is her fault. So Ada, and what do I do? Edit, holy shit you guys. Post barely been up 4 hours and I am already so grateful for all your support and advice. The angle of Nick actually wanting Barb to quit her job is not one I considered but now I think it might actually have merit, and it makes me very worried for her. At the same time I can't really do much until she at least acknowledges that, that's just how Nick is so stop overreacting, isn't going to fly with me. I also assume it's only a matter of time until my mom is no longer an option, she's already having a hard time, so I hope I get a chance to talk to her about it, ideally because she sees my point of view. But I'll settle for because she's desperate. I don't know what sort of childcare they'll be able to afford. They took out a large mortgage on a house they can barely afford. I will also make certain to stress upon Tracy that I love her and none of this is her fault. Thank you all. Relevant comments. OOP shouldn't cut off the contact with his niece, but have serious talks with Nick and Barb about their language uses toward family. Reply, I really hope to do that. How do I go about it though? Do I keep picking her up but go NC with the rest of them at all other times? I genuinely don't want to take it out on her, but how do I stand up for myself without doing that? OOP on why his 5-year-old kid is not in school yet. Reply, they, editor's note, Tracy and OOP's son, will be starting school next year. My kid turned 5 recently and wasn't eligible yet, and they, editor's note, Barb and Nick, decided to hold off on Tracy so that they could go together. OOP on if his wife and other adults know about Nick's behaviors. Reply, you're not wrong. This isn't the first time we butted heads. The other instances were just resolved, I thought. Like when he first started showing up for family holiday meals he'd just sit with my dad and watch football, soccer, or WE while I was playing host or minding the kids, and not get up to clear the dishes even when my dad did. So I called him out on it a few times and he does it now, which is why I thought, yeah, he probably wasn't really taught any better but he could change. But then again he would also leave terrible tips for waiting staff, but on that I assumed that had to do with his financial situation, so me and my wife started to just pick up the tab because we can afford it and don't really mind. And we'd be paying for my parents anyway since my mom doesn't work anymore. So I don't know, he was never my favorite guy but he seemed to make my sister happy. She had a few terrible relationships before him, so I would pick my battles. He never told me anything as overtly sexist homophobic as that so I just figured he was just not my type of guy, but didn't really confront him unless I felt it was warranted. I certainly wouldn't let slurs slide, but I don't recall him really using any in my presence before. And he doesn't really spend any time with my kids anyway, so I was never too worried about his presence around them. As for my sister, she is my sister, and we used to be very close. Hell, before this shit I thought we still were close. But now that I think about it I think she kind of became more withdrawn these past few years, because we used to talk about everything, especially around my mom's diagnosis. She has multiple sclerosis, and her being so willing to overlook someone talking like that about me actually caught me totally by surprise. Still, I don't know if I want to cut her off completely, but also, obviously I can't just ignore her excusing Nick's behavior. OOP responds to comments on how he chose to work from home and letting his wife be the one who works outside the house. Reply, I totally get you man. I used to work an insanely demanding job when I was fresh out of college and it just brought me no joy at all. Like, my wife really loves her career and she's crushing it and I'm super happy for her, but for me, my job isn't my calling, my job is my job, and I do it well. I just do it so I can afford fun stuff for the people I love. The time I spend with my wife and kids is what it's all about for me. OOP on going low contact with his sister and her husband, but not his niece, and clarifies on the financial levels. Reply, hey. So I think this actually might be the play here because I genuinely feel like shit for not picking her up and my kids miss her. I might have an honest conversation with my sister when we both cooled off though, because she's my sister, but Nick can get fucked, and I will not tolerate this shit again, and don't want to be taken for granted. We are better off financially than they are. Our house isn't bigger and our cars aren't fancier, but we are completely debt-free. My wife alone makes about as much as the two of them combined, and she got some really solid investments going. According to her, I don't know shit about investments. What I make is decent but not as much by any means, more than Barb but less than Nick. But it basically pays for our recreation, hobbies, vacations etc. They live in a bigger house and drive nicer cars, but they're paying off a mortgage and loans, so they can't really afford to quit cut back hours childcare, which is part of how we ended up here in the first place, since I love Tracy and didn't really mind. Update 1. My dad died from a heart attack 2 years ago, which came as no surprise because he smoked a lot and lived a pretty unhealthy life, so we weren't really surprised. It wasn't his first either. He was a great grandpa and a great dad before that and right up to the end. But his death left my mom alone and she doesn't work. My mom has MS, which is basically mostly steady, but slowly gets worse over time and flares up occasionally, and is made worse by stress, which my mom goes through now. A flare-up often means the level she gets back to isn't quite what it was before, so we mostly try to keep her stress-free. My dad had life insurance so her house is paid for and she had a little money, but there's also a caretaker coming over 3 times a week to clean, cook, do shopping etc., which she can't afford so me and my wife pay for. As I mentioned in a comment on the original post, me and my wife are doing probably better off financially than Barb and Bill. They have a fancy house and fancy cars but they have a mortgage and loans. So, the great response I got made me think about this shit again, and I thought how I could stand my ground without giving up on Tracy altogether, and figured there was no perfect solution, and I had to settle on something. I took the day off work because I just needed to process and deal with this shit. One comment on the original post really got to me, about how someone would feel in Tracy's place, and I just can't do it to her now. I know this isn't the update some of you have wanted, but I just can't. I love her like she was one of my own, and my kids do as well, and it's not her fault. I unblocked my sister because obviously if I'm going to be interacting with her child, she needs to be able to reach me. I talked to my mom during the day and she was, again, distraught about having to pick Tracy up, which is pretty hard on her. I told her I was willing to do it, but I'm coming over and she's going to have to hear me out, to which she agreed. I talked to her for a long time, avoiding snark and lashing out this time, and just explaining that basically how serious Nick was or how he is doesn't matter. I used that rocking the boat analogy someone linked to in comments, and further stressed my point by saying that it shouldn't matter if I was justified or not in getting upset. I am her child and if something upset me it at least warrants giving me the benefit of the doubt before siding against me, and eventually it seemed to come through. She apologized and we hugged it out, and I think she got it. She's not a very confrontational person and generally really tries to keep the peace, and this time she went about it wrong. I'm not saying I'm not mad, but she's my mom and she apologized. I explained to her that she shouldn't be covering for me because that means I have no leg to stand on when confronting Nick and Barb, and she was receptive to it. I texted my sister that we needed to talk and I'll drop Tracy off at their place tonight, to which I got a stoic thumbs up. I picked Tracy up from daycare today and she was overjoyed. She was actually a little possessive of me, staying by my side all afternoon instead of running off to play, which was cute but also made me feel like shit a little, because that's impact me not picking her up. I explained to the best of my ability that she's not in trouble and I'm not angry with her, but I am angry with her parents and we need to work that out, but I'll do my best to not stop picking her up anymore, which she was really happy about. I dropped her off in the evening and once she was in bed I sat down to talk with Barb and Nick. I told them flat out that mom wasn't going to be covering for them anymore, and if they didn't let me finish what I had to say, I would get up and leave, and they can find new arrangements for Tracy. Didn't mean it but they don't need to know that. They weren't happy but they were willing to listen, so that's progress, or at least the threat working. I explained that this was the situation now, I don't need them to mean their apology, but I sure as fuck was going to need one. This was principle now. I have spent years taking care of their child, and if they wanted to be assholes, I wasn't going to do it for free. So this was how it goes now. I am no longer going to be dropping her off in the morning until further notice. There was no excuse for the way Nick acted and it needed to have some lasting impact. I was no longer going to be paying for family outings and family vacations. It was a man's job to support his family, so good luck with that. The exception is Tracy, who is always welcome. If I hear any more BS being talked about me behind my back, I was going to start charging them for my service. My plan was to dangle the thing they want, childcare. Restoring it, but at the same time giving some repercussions and threat of things getting hard for them again. I also laid it on pretty thick about how I am a man, so I obviously have my pride and can't have that be disrespected, even by my own family who I obviously love. Don't really consider Nick family but figured he wouldn't figure that out. Nick was not happy about this, and my sister actually had to take him outside to talk it out without me, but eventually they did agree to it, and I got my, admittedly half-hearted, apology. I could probably press it further, but I didn't want to risk having to either back down or hurt Tracy again, so I took this. There were no tears and no warm hugs, but I get to walk away with what I wanted, giving them some payback without having to give up my time with Tracy. I still plan to talk to my sister alone about her relationship with Nick and about how she sees me, but I figure I should let things calm down a bit before I do. I know this isn't the resolution some, maybe most, of you wanted, but at the end of the day I need to find a solution I can live with, and for me this is it. Will update if anything changes. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, you were paying for their family vacations? Damn. Reply, I thought I was paying for our family vacations, and honestly because my wife makes more than me and is mostly the one in charge of our finances, she could be considered the one paying, since her income basically keeps us housed and fed while my salary is the having fun fund. She was actually always very excited about this since she doesn't have much family remaining, so having Barb, Nick and Tracy alongside her sisters always made her feel like she had a big family, and she felt this justified the expense and made her really happy. Obviously she is now furious with them because I don't think either of us will feel comfortable paying for them again, and they probably can't afford to come along. I do hope we will still get to bring Tracy along, at least. I have no intention of ever paying for them again because there is no world in which I would feel comfortable doing so.